Welcome back, fight fans, to the Fight Plan podcast. And my goodness, I say this every time, but I'm genuinely so excited to talk to these guys. We have an absolute legend of the fight game on the ice, a true ice warrior, Darren fucking Kramer. Darren Kramer. Yeah, the guy who just out of nowhere fought 46 times in the WHL as a 19-year-old rookie. I remember being in the OHL and be like, what is happening? I always felt like our paths would cross. They sure as hell did on the ice. You're going to see. And now they're crossing off the ice. Namaste, fellow waves. In the ocean of loving consciousness, namaste, fight fans. I get to do this. This is crazy. This is a podcast I'm tuning into 1,000 times out of 1,000 times. Darren fucking Kramer, as I said in the damn opening, this guy's a legend. 46 fights as a WHL 19-year-old rookie, gets drafted just out of nowhere. Okay, this stuff didn't happen. His PIM totals leading the Alberta Junior Hockey League, then the WHL, then the AHL. It's a damn travesty he never got an NHL game. And we're going to find out why. I don't know. We've kept the correspondence pretty minimal. I wanted to keep it that way. We had our battles on the ice. He's turned down many other podcasts to be here. So I said, let's keep it organic. Let's just rip it when you get on. But it's a unique career. It's a unique story. And a guy that I saw, I was just like, we're going to fight one day. I can just tell how bad he wants it. I know how bad I want it. It's just going to have to cross. And I'm so excited that we did on the ice. Now we're going to talk off the ice. All the things that I don't know yet that I'm sure you all want to know as well. We're going to get into it here. I got a whole plan. Okay. Definitely going to need to tape up for this one. Get the Vaseline on the face, get the red hot all over the body, get all spicy, because we're stepping into the ring with an absolute animal, a middleweight that fought every heavyweight and didn't give a shit. Okay. The hardest punch I've ever taken. Darren fucking Kramer. Let's step in the ring, people. Whoa. Fight fans, slow down. Slow down. I know you're excited for the interview, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. However, I am also very, very excited to talk about my book, my memoir, that me and my co-author Dana have been absolutely pouring our heart and souls into for so long now. We got a date. I've been bouncing around all over the place with it, but June 29th, my favorite hockey number, right before Canada Day, before July 4th. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, fellow waves. It's going to be a wild summer. What's going on? The man, the myth, the legend, Darren Kramer. Namaste, brother. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining the Fight Plan podcast. How the hell are you?
I'm doing good. Lots of interesting stuff going on. It's been an interesting, call it almost 10 years since we've come face to face. And lots have happened in between that time and now. But life is good. And you're getting me out of my comfort zone here.
Hey, that's what I like to hear. The guy's vulnerable from the get-go, people. It's just pinch. I get to pinch myself every time I get to interview and talk to guys like you that just, man, like you said, it's been 10 years since we battled on the ice, but you hear about guys, you hear about their reputation and the kind of guy they are. And brother, I've never heard a damn bad thing about you. So I'm so excited to just tee you up and let you get into some of this stuff and relive it. And just as boys, just chatting about it, because we did a job that not many people did. And there's some connections that we can make with each other that other people just don't get. So let me tee it up. Where this has to start is we're playing in the preseason in Fargo, North Dakota. It's Shields Arena. I remember I'm like in my third year, I think. And I'm just like, why am I fucking not at the NHL camp still? And we're out there. We got this new Finnish kid, Michael Karanen. He's like the leading scorer. He comes over and we're like, okay, we got to protect this kid. That's my job. And it's a second period, I think. And you just bury him right in front of our bench. I'm standing right there. You bury him. You give an extra cross check. And I'm like, no, say less, Krames. And he comes off like wincing. I change on a legal line change. And I'm flying off the bench. I'm already yelling at you because you're skating the other way. You turn around, you shed right away. And we get into it. And it's funny because one of these fights that I don't remember too much more than You absolutely planted a right, just perfectly. Like my left side of my face, yeah, perfectly right here. Not my nose, just dead cheekbone. And I remember going, we had like a kind of a wrestling match after that, after you landed that punch and it ended, the refs come in. I'm like, damn, I can eat a punch. I am a fucking nail gun. And I woke up the next morning and my eyes were cross-eyed, kid. You absolutely hammered me. That's the only time I can seriously say I got a concussion from a punch. So, brother, that was a rude awakening to Darren Kramer. I knew about you, but that was wow. What do you remember about that day? Because my brain still does.
Yeah, you nailed it. I don't love to hear the outcome of that, but I'll take it, of course. And, remove the hit, remove all the other variables. You weren't getting out of that game without a fight. That's the bottom line. Um, it's funny how it works in the American Hockey League, NHL, professional hockey in general, where, I'm 24 years old. I'm trying out for my job again, which a lot of people don't understand that, looking at the previous 3 years, and I don't want to, steer away from this story here. We'll get back to it. But, you come off your entry-level contract. You have a home. You're comfortable. You have to make the team, of course. There's other alternatives. You can get sent down to the East Coast Hockey League. The ultimate goal is to play in the NHL. But you do have a home for 3 years when you're on that entry-level contract. And there's some level of comfort to that. Fast forward to this season, this fight. I'm 24 years old. My wife is waiting back home to find out, where are we going to live? Are we going to live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, or are we going to go to Boise, Idaho in the East Coast Hockey League? Are we going to go to Europe? What's all this? So, from my perspective, this is my situation. This is my tryout. It's like being 14 again, except my role is different. You're up. And that's kind of how it happened. I looked at the game notes. We weren't familiar with each other from the season before, just based on how the American League was set up. And I came over and I knew pretty quick that you were the guy. I wasn't happy about it. I saw your size. I saw who you were. I watched some of your fights and fuck, but here we were. And I'm glad that you ended up engaging and you were the one that, it made it look like I was just standing up for myself. But ultimately that fight was going to happen. And, we both came out of it. We're alive to talk about it. Obviously you took a good one. I know I probably took a few good ones, but hundreds in between then and now. So they all kind of blend in. That's the reality of the job.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and we're going to get into that mentality more and we're going to walk it back through your journey. But that's so true, man. Like we just knew going into games. You could tell by the way guys fought. You could tell by the way their careers unraveled. This guy's a gamer. And I always felt that about you seeing your career. I've always researched every guy's whole come up. I wanted to know what kind of fighter he was, what kind of guy. But man, you did me a solid there because I didn't have to say anything. I woke up the next day. The way you hit Karen, they flagged me for starting a fight after an illegal line change, which it clearly wasn't. But I had never been so happy to be suspended for 2 weeks because I got to rest my melon without telling anybody. No tough guy wants to be the tough guy with the soft melon. So I got to rest it. It was a beautiful synchronistic thing that happened. And I was off and ready to go after that, after my 2 weeks off. So I even got to go to Fargo a little bit in North Dakota after the boys played. I get to go a little party a little bit. It was great. I was taking
exactly. Yeah, that's right. We forgot to mention that. I believe that game was in Fargo, North Dakota, and quite the barn, quite the location. Sometimes during our hockey journey, we find ourselves in a lot of funny places, and it's part of the beauty of it. It's part of growing as a human being, that you get to travel all these different places with, unique cultures, unique characteristics. And ultimately it's what shapes us as human beings moving forward in life. I know there's a lot of things that I take from my career, a lot of good, a lot of things that I thought were good. Now I look back on them and they're a little bit, different perspective on it now, but it has shaped me. And those are things that resonate with you to this day.
Amen, brother.
It's a hell of a career.
Amen.
It's an interesting career, and it's the way we did it, an extremely difficult career.
You're preaching to the choir there, brother. You know it. And let's walk it back to how you got there. Like you're talking about, you're saying all the funny places it takes you. Well, my career sure as hell never took me to Peace River, Alberta, where you were freaking from, such a small community. Paint the picture of Peace River for people who don't know it. I've been doing my research. Population about 6,500. Northern Alberta, oil patch country. What was it like growing up there, man? Because that just sounds like a different world from suburban GTA Toronto, like I grew up in.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's too many similarities. I would say the one similarity is the dream that every young boy has. Whether you're from the GTA or from rural northern Alberta, we all have one vision, one goal. We still play the same game in the basement on the driveway. Other than that, not a lot of similarities, but beautiful place to grow up. You know, it's home for myself and my wife again. We're raising our two daughters here. It's a special place. There's any small rural area, rural community. There's some pitfalls, but um, played hockey all winter. Come spring, hockey bag went in the shed. Dirt bikes came out, pedal bikes came out. It was a really traditional childhood like that. Um, you know, in my mind, I was getting out of this town and I was playing at that time in the NHL, and that was it. There was no other way around things. I told my teachers that all the way through, and I think a lot of us have that similar story. It's just something that ingrains in your mindset, and you run with it. So, in hindsight, I wish I would have schooling all of that, but that's a whole different story. But that was the mindset all the way through, and then it was a bit of an unconventional path. You know, whether it came from the Bantam draft to the Western Hockey League, and then the NHL draft, I was delayed in every aspect. I remember when I was, going through it's U18 now, but midget hockey years, I was released from our local midget AA team my first year. My second year, I ended up making that team, ended up leading it in points. And my third year, I ended up making a junior A team just 2 hours down the road in the Alberta Junior Hockey League. And that was a learning season, lots of development, just figuring out the game, so different from playing minor hockey, jumping into the junior A level. We had a great group, though. We had a tough group. That's really when the physical end started for me. After that season, we ended up winning a championship, and I got a phone call that I was drafted to the Bantam draft. And I thought, well, the Bantam draft happens after your Bantam season to the Western Hockey League, and I'm a 1991 born. This was the 94 draft. So the radio broadcaster in Grand Prairie called, congrats on the draft, this and that. And I thought there's got to be a mistake. I pulled it up. Sure enough, in the 10th round, the Edmonton Oil Kings selected me, and it was all 94 borns and then myself 91 born. And I thought, okay, well, this changes the mindset. At that time, I was looking at, taking the college route, but now all of a sudden the Western Hockey League comes knocking. And I thought the Bantam draft had come and gone 3 years prior. And technically, this was my NHL draft. I'm a late birthday, so it was the next year. Anyways, ended up opting out and not going to Edmonton, and played another full season in the Alberta Junior Hockey League. From there, Edmonton ended up dropping me. I went back for my 19-year-old season, still playing tier 2 junior, and I was the captain of that team, and we were finding success. But they had changed the fighting rule that year to 5 fights in total for the entire season. And I think five games into the year, I was already at my 5-game limit, and the Spokane Chiefs had just listed me. So I was protected by them. I couldn't go anywhere else. And he came down, he watched me at the showcase. This was probably October of my 19-year-old season. And I said, let's do it. And I committed. I signed to the Western Hockey League at that time before notifying anyone, because I knew I was easily talked out of it. And the college route is the way you want to go, etc. Hindsight, possibly, but I can't say anything. I mean, I fulfilled a dream of mine, got drafted to the National Hockey League. And that was that season. I joined the Spokane Chiefs a little bit later in the season in October. And I was getting shit on for this heavily, saying, talking about my eligibility, all of that. Fast forward to June, my name was called in the draft, and played my overage season in Spokane. And from there, it was, we can get into details, and it was a hell of a ride. I think I ended up having 46 fights that first season in Spokane.
Brother, you're taking us through the whole journey here. We got to get into the details, brother. We got some time together. We got some time together, but man.
So that was really it. That's where I was propelled into it. And talk about learning how to, going through that. It's, 46 fights. I don't know where you want to take it from there. It was obviously something to put you on the map, but not easy on the hand, not easy on the mind, and just something that you had to prepare for and get up for every night.
Yeah, well, let's go back to what formed you into this kind of guy. First of all, Peace River is this quiet place, this small town. What's the family situation like, brother? What's the family? Is it everybody in Peace River? Is it somewhere you have, your generations have been there a long time? Did you guys move there? Who'd you have in your life, and who molded you into being this guy who was just take no prisoners. I don't care what happens. I'm going.
Yeah, I think that was always part of me. We always joke about it. My brother and I, like, we're so opposite, and he's 2 years older than I am, and just I'm much more intense, much more tenacity. He's a lot more laid back, chill,
Mm.
and so there was just that one brother growing up, and I ended up with step siblings as well that played a big role in my childhood. So obviously my parents being separated, but they're immigrants from Holland, so I think that. When you have immigrant parents that immigrated, they came over in the 80s. They were both 20 years old, freshly married, and just chasing a different life, and not that life is horrible in Holland, but they wanted the wide open spaces and just different opportunity. My dad ended up in a career in oil and gas, and we lived here our whole life. Obviously, I took off to chase the dream, but my dad just recently uh, relocated to Chilliwack, BC, so just part of his retirement. But yeah, I think part of it is just that blue collar mentality. Like growing up in a small town, we were tough. Like I look back at, and I'm not just saying me that went on to play this role at the professional level. Like just our minor hockey days, we'd travel 45 minutes down the road, an hour down the road. Like these were tough teams to play against. And like at a young age, you recognized that like this was meat and potatoes, and the game was played completely different back then. Of course, we're talking the early 2000s when things started taking off for me, and then obviously 0809 playing my first junior hockey game. So the game was played totally different. I watch a minor hockey game now, and I think the game has evolved in the right direction. There's no question. With my history, like if I was raising a child, I have two sweet girls, and right now no interest in the game. But if I had boys and I had the freedom to set them off and do the exact same thing as I would, am I sending them off to fight 46 times in a season? Probably thinking twice about that one. And I did it. I loved it. I sometimes just shake my head and think, how the fuck did I do that? And what was my mindset at that time? Like to get up for it night after night, just it's tough. And in the moment, I don't know if it's just because you're living in the moment, you've taken on that identity, you've taken on that role, but it's so, in hindsight now, I think there's no fucking way I can possibly do that again, one time. And I even came back home after my professional playing career and played 4 years of senior hockey here in the North Peace Hockey League, and ended up mixing it up a few times as well. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm working shift work at this point, raising a family, and now I'm going down and playing against, these. It's a relatively small league, but like everybody puts their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it gets insane. And my gloves came off a few times in that league, even after my mindset has shifted, but you put the gear on and you step out on the ice, it's completely different every time.
Man, just from studying fighters in the game and being a student of it, it just seems like the higher you go on towards the North Pole, just the more tough it gets. I remember reading Jordan Tutu's book and how theirs was like a fight was happening, a hockey game broke out. Like they just went out there to beat the piss out of each other. That was the game to them. And you coming down to northern Alberta, you got your kind of come up where it's like you're talking, it's meat and potatoes, and it's that physical in minor hockey. Where it comes down to my level, it's like I remember those days as well where we were brought up in this, bull in the ring kind of like learn how to hit. They just made you run into each other. And I was watching Darcy Tucker and I was just thinking, this is the way I got to play. I wasn't shoulder checking. I wasn't toe dragging. It was balls to the wall, passionate, Leafs die forever. That was the mentality. So we came through that. And I think, you were even way more of a player than I was. Yes, you were in a Northern League, but you were a freaking goal scorer, man.
I got lucky with a few. There's no question. It's funny though. I had just shy. I got my 20th goal robbed in the AJHL in my season that I scored 19. And the following year, I ended up scoring, my 20-year-old season, I scored 22 in the Western League. And my coaches were bugging me. They said if you added up all 20 goals, you'd be 40 feet outside of the net. So it just showed that I was sniffing around the net, and got lucky. Got some special teams time, power play time. Obviously net front presence, but I did have a knack for around the net. Not that it was ever pretty, but just finding the puck and scoring some goals, and that was such a fun part of the game. Like I look back on that season where I scored 46. Fast forward to, and I think I can't remember my numbers from that first season in Spokane, but nothing to call home about. And fast forward to the playoffs, things became a little bit more offensive. And I think that's ultimately what got me drafted was that season. And I remember our opening night playoff game against Chilliwack. I ended up scoring a goal. We ended up winning that game 3-2 in overtime. And I scored one. Tyler Johnson, who ended up having a great career, he scored the other one. And then he assisted on my overtime winner. So to get those little moments and those little wins in your in a role like this, at any time you were lucky to find the back of the net. They seem to be big goals, and it just felt good again, almost to be a kid and contribute to the game in another way than being a rat or fighting. And there's so many different areas of the game that are so important. And if you have a good craft, you can play this game the right way. You can be effective. There's no question, but there's nothing like scoring a goal. There's nothing like getting in on a celebration and saving your hands for one night, and more importantly, your head.
100%, but it's clear that you had that mentality a bit. Like in minor hockey, 48 points, 30 games, your AAA season. You got 17 points, 9 goals, and 9 playoff games. You had that knack for it at that level, but it sounds like it wasn't much of a transition from minor to that first year in Grand Prairie, because you said it was so tough. You basically were just now allowed to drop the gloves instead of just run each other through the wall with cages on.
Oh, the dynamics completely changed. And I look at that first season of playing serious hockey, mid to AAA, we ended up, we were very fortunate. We had a coach that was himself was drafted to the NHL. He was an intense human being. He was great at preaching the game, teaching the game, but taking that next step to the tier 2 junior level. I remember I was always a centerman growing up, and I loved that because it was so versatile. You could be everywhere on the ice. Now I go to my 17-year-old training camp. I'm still 16 at this time. And I couldn't lift 135 pounds on a bench press. I had never touched the inside of a gym. That wasn't part of my childhood. We didn't know that. My parents didn't know that. Nobody knew what training was for hockey. It was like get in your dirt bike, get in the hills, and grab a shovel and start digging, building jumps. So that's kind of the childhood. And I get to training camp. That was the biggest eye opener for me. These guys were big. They were strong in the gym. Like I said, we got to the bench press test and I looked at it. It was just a single 45-pound plate on each side. And I could not lift it off the bar. And then we go in, I'm trying to fight guys. I am fighting guys. Yeah. And I'm doing well with it. So the strength was there. It just wasn't in the gym. And we ended up in practice one day, and I'm a centerman, but get switched over to the left wing. And I'm running around. We're doing a D-zone drill. And I thought, I have no clue where to go. Finally, it gets blowed down. It was one of the most degrading moments in my career, but at the same time, such a pivotal moment where I thought, this is it? Learning the role of a left winger. When my coach blew the whistle down in front of the whole group, and I'm already, skill-wise, I'm behind everyone. I'm trying my best. And this is after training camp. So it's anyways, he's like, do you know where to go? And he's calling me out in front of everyone. I'm like, I don't know. It was such a complex moment. And he just takes me to the house, back out to the point, back to the house, back to the point, shows me that potentially I have to open up for a D-man coming behind the net. And I think to myself, you got to be kidding me. This is it. This is the role of a left winger. I'm like, if I can hone my craft of getting the puck out of the zone, if I can and I can have this physical tangible, all these little things, I started to be like, I can do this. Yeah, I'm completely on the bottom of this depth chart right now. But forecasting the next 2, 3, 4 years, I was like, I can do this. If this is my window right now to get to where I have to be to play professional hockey, let's do this. And lo and behold, things had a bit of a progression. I ended up scoring some goals the following season. So the offensive side never really, in my mind, as we had a really slow burn and slow development, I was going to have that same role in a bit of a David Clarkson back then. He was one of the guys that I really idolized, and I thought, I can do that. You watch him, he's a little bit sloppy on the ice. He doesn't look pretty, but he gets the job done offensively. He can fight, he can get in on the forecheck, and he's making a shitload of money. I thought, wow, how easy is this? So those are little moments in your career that you really learn, and that's why I preach it so much to the youth generation now. Just, enjoy the game, have fun. You don't know when these pivotal moments are going to come in your life or in your career. So it's just embrace the game, really enjoy it. Preach that to the parents as well. You have to enjoy these moments, and just naturally your abilities are going to come through. And those little steps that you're going to take, they just happen like this, where, a coach is going to mention something to you. The first time I watched video in a locker room, I thought, what the fuck are we doing today? And it's like, we're watching our game. Like, I had to run the camcorder for the first few games in that tier 2 season. So I'm running it and I'm thinking, well, I want to be a half decent cameraman. So I'm zooming in on guys and I'm like, trying to get good footage of a hockey game. And then the coach gets it back. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I can't see anything now. Because obviously we're trying to see our systems. We're trying
You're
to see what
zooming
the
in.
team is doing. So I'm zooming in on a player that has the puck breaking out. Like, D-Man's picking up the puck behind the net. I'm like, well, I'll just zoom in on him because that looks really good. And then it's like, then finally we watch video and I'm like, holy shit, this is the purpose of video, to see the entire ice, So all
Dude,
those moments are just, they play such a big role in your development, how things progress. And and then I really loved being a student of the game, and that just continued to grow. Obviously, the Western Hockey League was a lot more elite than the Alberta Junior Hockey League, and then you get to the pro level, and it's
yeah,
amazing.
but dude, let me just stop you there because that's hilarious. That is hilarious. You're a centerman all your life. You get there and you're just like chasing the puck around like a dog chasing a bone. And it's like, what are you doing? You're like, wait a second. All I got to do is go in and out. I could fucking do this. And it's like I talk to people on their, with their mental health or whatever. Now it's like the answers are fucking simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy to do. Like, you're 16 in this league, dude. You play 38 games and you have 220 penalty minutes. You can't lift a bar off the bench. Like, it's crazy, dude. Like, so it's not that it was easy. It was hard, but it was simple, meat and potatoes. You're even overcomplicating, just trying to do the best job videoing. But again, keep it simple. And you're like, damn, okay, I just got to show up and I know how to work hard. That's all I got to do.
That's it. And that was one thing I'm really grateful for having, especially a father plays a large role in our development throughout life, and especially in sport. But my dad's from Holland. Like, this guy landed in the 80s when there was cup celebrations going on for the Oilers, and they're like, what is the Stanley Cup? They don't know. So my father could never really teach me the tangibles of the game, system-wise. Like, I never had that, but there was one expectation. And if we made the drive, we made the commitment, it's work ethic. You show up. And it was the easiest thing to meet those expectations. We'd go out to practice, and I thought, like, I had him in the back of my mind the whole time. It wasn't about how flashy it was. It was get to the front of the line first. It was work as damn hard as I can. It was all these little things. And that's, again, why I'm telling parents and young kids now, don't fucking worry about the flash. The flash doesn't matter right now. The love for the game, the willingness to put in the work, the time, it's so basic, but we overcomplicate it. We overcomplicate life in general. Like, I'm so guilty of it as well. And that's maybe the number one commandment that I live by now for myself is just keep it simple, man. Because at the very baseline, life is very complex, very difficult. And now you start adding this, you start adding that. Your network's too big, whatever it might be. You just keep getting smothered by shit along the way. And eventually you can't get out. So in my life, the way I live it now, especially with my kids being the most important, my wife, my career now, it's like I'm not adding a whole lot in. I have a lot of things that I have passion for and that I really enjoy doing. But just like the game, very similar to life, keep it simple. And often you find more success. And, my version of success has ultimately changed over the last 10 years, but really amplified over the last 5, what success means. And that ultimately comes down to my own struggles, my own mental health, battles, all of that, where what is success, and a lot of times I put a monetary value on that, but I don't anymore. Amen. And it's just, it really comes down to, as simple as it is, happiness, peace between the ears, 100%, peace in your home. They're 100%. Such simple things, but we make it so difficult to achieve those. And I almost started thinking, like, as I was running a business for my first career outside of hockey, I thought, like, where's the measuring stick here? And if I'm going to live like this, stressed to the nines, not sleeping, I'm unhappy right now, but you can give me $100 million tomorrow and it's just not going to do it. So at what point, and I started thinking, like, I think happiness is a much harder success to achieve than financial wealth or whatever it might look like. And I thought, if I can achieve that, it's just really difficult because you can't flaunt it. I can flaunt a new truck, I can flaunt a new house, flaunt all of that. But if I'm truly happy inside, what am I going to do? Walk around and tell everyone I finally did it? I'm successful. I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. So it's hard to be outward about it, but start realizing that, man, this is the most important thing in your life, and that's ultimate success. So lots
Amen,
of
brother.
lots of changes over the last 10 years, and especially over the last 20. Went through different identities and shifts and ebbs and flows, and hasn't all been easy, but
Fuck no.
you
Let's
take one step at a time. And
let's keep seeing how it translated through the career though, because like it's all how it formed you. Like you clearly the stuff your dad instilled in you is so obvious by just looking at the pimp totals, man. Like you played the 38 games the first year at Grand Prairie, 58, but really you only played just over 80, 90 games. You have 500 penalty minutes, led the league in penalty minutes the next year. Like I don't think people realize this wasn't being done in this time in hockey anymore. Like this was
no,
just standing out like a sore thumb across North America. It was so hard to miss. And then you come back as the third year, like you said, you'd been picked up and you're later in your draft. It's so interesting that you had that experience. I got drafted late as well, but I didn't even know I was eligible for the NHL draft. You didn't even know you were eligible for the Bantam draft still, and you get picked as a 91. That's crazy. So then you go third year, like you said, I was going to ask you, you're focusing on, hey, I got to get a scholarship. Like I got to play like a psycho here, but I got to work on my feet. I got to work on my skills. Like, of course, to play any level of pro, but if I'm going the college route, that's what I got to do. You're the captain. You have a 6 start to the year. And next thing you know, you're dropped into the Western Hockey League and you just go nutso. So for the 46 fights, which you have mentioned, I remember being in junior and OHL and being like, who is this guy out in the Western League fighting every fucking night? So was that targeted in your mind? Was it just how it came out, or you forged playing that hard every shift in the AJHL? Like, where did that 46 number get so high?
oh, it's unbelievable, really. Like
It's
I can never
crazy.
do it again in my life. There's no question about that. 46 fights in a season, 46 fights. I can't get in one more fight the rest of my life, I don't think.
Yeah.
Having that said, I had one season. Like when your back is against the wall, what do you do? And I had one season, and there was a fire that was ignited under me with a lot of people that doubted my decision to go to the Western Hockey League. I knew my ability. I knew that if I could, get to the point, I believed that I could get drafted. Like I had my goals set quite high, but even the floor, like I looked at that and I thought, if I can get to the overage season in the Western Hockey League, like I'm going to score 20, I think. I'll score 15 to 20. I'll fight. And worst case scenario, we're coming out here with a CIS scholarship. It's not the worst thing in the world. And thank goodness the rule changes and the eligibility has changed since then. But yeah, regardless, there was just a motivation that, the time frame played into it. I didn't have time to dip my toe in the water and see how cold the water was. It was like, you got to go now. And it's October and the draft is in June. You have one season to do this. And I took off running. And a lot of people said, well, how do you do it? Well, at that time, it was just, if I asked Tyler Johnson if he was planning on scoring a goal one night and then not the next, like a 50 goal scorer scores 50 goals because they show up every night. So when, the 46 number is insane. You add on the few from junior A in October, it was a 50 plus fight season, which is not normal, but
No.
you can't hide from it either. And I knew that, and I knew it was going to get the attention of, at the very least, I knew that NHL teams were going to just look at me. Because how do you not walk into a building of the Spokane Chiefs? And I just knew that naturally 10, 15 scouts a night in the building, like that's just how it works. So, and then going back to the goal analogy, like if I fought one night, I didn't think the next night was appropriate to just take it off because I did it. You're only as strong as your last performance. And there was always appropriate times in a hockey game. And that was my mindset was, if we played Kamloops the night before and I had a fight and then we have Everett tonight, I'm not thinking, well, I did it last night, I'm off the hook for tonight. No, this is a new hockey game. There's going to be opportunity that comes up, whatever that might look like, if it's for, a swing of momentum, or a lot of times it was just letting the guys on my team feel comfortable. If they got touched, and I maybe went overboard with it, like, guys would get just barely touched, or even if one guy would open their mouth, it was like, locked on and just you're done. So, but it was also that mentality that like you come to Spokane, we're not going to get fucked with. And that's the bottom line. And I never really thought I was the toughest guy in the world. But I was willing. And just that willingness is enough to just instill that little bit of thought process into a locker room. And yeah, it just it took off. It took off.
And Baldy goes, Krames, just go out there, just go after a kid.
Oh,
Baldy's the heavy on his team, and he's just going, Krames, go do your thing. I'll clean up anybody else that's tired when you're done with them. Because, dude, what people don't realize, you're not a huge guy. Okay, people. I was tall, but I never played more than I never fought at probably over 215. But still, what are you 6'2", 210 at most, 215?
yeah. Now, I mean, I ended up losing quite a bit of weight. Now I'm about 195.
I'm 165.
No way.
I'm 165, brothers. But when you were fighting monsters throughout your whole career as a large fucking middleweight, man. Like, it's fucking incredible.
And that's one thing that played heavy on me was we never had a heavyweight.
Never.
Whether it was Bingo, whether it was Manitoba. We had Anthony Peluso come down to Manitoba for probably half a season, the better part of a full season. Yep. It was so relieving to have the presence of a legitimate heavyweight on your bench. Like, I was rolling into buildings. I mean, especially that, I think it was 14, 15, that kind of last year that, a lot of guys that were still on one-way contracts. And there was just an overall agreement in the NHL that this was over. The Colton Orrs, the Trevor Gillies, the Fraser McLarens, all those guys, like, they started getting sent down. And I'm sitting there in Binghamton like, we're not getting anyone. And you're not getting rescued. No. And I remember going into Adirondack on a fucking 3-3. And, we played two games in Bingo. You go into Adirondack on a Sunday. So you bust the 3 hours. And this team has Brian McGrattan and Trevor Gillies on their roster. And a handful of other guys that are more than willing combatants. So it's like, I remember going onto their bench when they finally put their spare sticks out. And I was praying that Brian McGrattan was playing. I just was like, pick your lesser of two evils here, really. I went, sure enough, Trevor Gillies is playing. That was the one guy that I truly rejected a fight for, more from the support of my team. And it's like, I remember, and I had fully agreed to him in warm-up. Like, I had done the first couple laps, and there's Trevor Gillies just standing on the red line. And nobody will ever understand that feeling unless you're in that moment. Where it's like, can you imagine this guy standing on the red line? Here's 20 guys skating around, and you're the one that he's looking at. It's like, well, I'm going to address it because we have to address it at some point here. It's a Sunday matinee in Adirondack. There's 50 people in the stands. Like, I'm not interested. This is not going to change the trajectory of your career anymore. We can get out of this night totally fine. I just remember I went and had a conversation with him, and he just, the first thing he just confirmed it. He said, you're leading the league in majors? And I said, yes. He said, you're going to give me one tonight. And I thought, oh my God, like, I'm staring at this man like, you are a man and you throw lefts.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the difference between him and McGrattan. McGrattan is primarily a righty.
Yeah.
So I'll take that all day. And I've watched Trevor Gillies, and this guy's got he's a gamer and beyond a gamer.
Brother, I remember that season. I remember that season. They had Matthew Tousignan, the fucking rat French dude, in the center ice position. I'm lining up against Gillies. McGrattan's on their side. Gillies rolls up to me because I'm already at the dot holding, shaking my stick. He rolls up slowly to my ear. You ready for this, kid? And I said, no, sir. And he said, okay. That was it.
Wow.
Then I got ran over by McGrattan, that shift from behind. I stood up and went right to the bench.
Yeah.
My first year, I was like, super heavies are not on the menu the first year. They just weren't. I knew it. Nope. I felt it. The next year I came back, I started fighting the big boys, Peluso, all that shit. But I could not agree more with you, man. I'm looking at the guys you were playing with. You're playing with Boro. Boro's a fucking gamer like you, but he's not huge. He's not up heavy. David Jasinski. I mean, you get, what's his name, your next year? Gryba's there a little bit, but he's not much. There was one other guy, Zadeo, crazy lefty. He kind of helped you out a little bit.
Man, Mike Zadeo. But the problem for me is that a lot of these guys had a lot of other tangibles that were really valuable to
played on their
positions. Like, you look at a guy like Mark Borowiecki, tough as nails. Like, this guy would be, I'd come through, I'd go to grab a coffee before the game. I'd walk through the gym in my skates, and he was, he'd be deadlifting, he'd be pressing, cleaning before a game, just activating muscles. Like, this guy, when we talk about pros, Boro was certainly a pros pro. Yeah. And this guy was so, like, the strength he had, but he could play the game. And we needed him to play the game. So then it was, again, fell onto my shoulders. Dave Drzezinski, he often got put into situations that it wasn't appropriate for him to fight. So who had to clean up the mess? And like, these guys could all do it, but it was just, you know how it works within a locker room and on a team where it just, they were there. It felt great when they cleaned up the mess once in a while, and I appreciated it. But quite often it was just right back to, I got to take one here. And there were certain guys where I thought, like, there's guys on this team that are way better suited to fight this individual than me. But here we are again. You know, I look at Cam Jansen. I fought that guy 3 times. What an like, he played in Albany, and this guy loved it. I couldn't believe it. A guy like Cam Jansen, he'd be hooting and hollering throughout the fight. And like, he's at the tail end of his career, and there's still no slowing him down. Like, again, Albany was a sleeper of a building, beautiful building, but it was, you know, maybe a couple hundred people in there, and it's like sprinkled because this is a large arena that we're playing in. And again, Sunday afternoon in front of a couple hundred people, he wanted it every single night. He wanted it, and he got it 3 times. But I thought, this is fucking insane. And fighting Cam Jansen.
It's so funny how people would have said that about us, but here we are sitting talking about going
exactly
different. There's just guys with a twisted kink in their dick, like fucking Tony Twist, Cam Jansen, these guys that literally live for it. It's just different. You and me, I think, convinced people because we love the game so much to do it. But anybody would have said we were that crazy. But I can't wait to have Cam on and ask him about this, and Burrow, and ask him about all these same things. But yeah, your year you lead the league in PIMS. Your next closest PIM buddy is Max McCormick. Like, you're fucking Gilliam Lapine, bud. 38 games. We need you in there fighting a little bit more, pal. Help me out here.
Right. And, that's one guy, Lapine, undercover, one of the toughest guys I ever played with.
Yep.
Like, Frenchman, took great care of himself. You know, he had a chest of a man, and this guy could throw a punch, and he could fight anybody. And he was willing. So he did save me a few times, but you're right. It's almost like, and then there was times where I was in the lineup, he's not. I'm thinking, fuck, like,
where is he?
Put him in the lineup, keep me out, you know? But, and going back to it, like that Western League season, when you brought up the penalty minutes, and I had 311, I believe, in my last year of Tier 2 junior. And then I went to the Western Hockey League and I had 306. But in the Western Hockey League, they didn't count 10-minute misconducts. So if you add those up, I think I'm certainly surpassed 400 penalty minutes.
For sure.
And, you know, you look at that rule where you're like, I was pissed early on. I thought, but if you 50 times 5, like, you're halfway there already just from fighting. So it's not very hard to get to 300 penalty minutes if you're fighting nearly 50 times.
For sure. Okay, so take me off the ice now, because you only moved away from home, not too far to Grand Prairie, only 2.5 hours. But then you go 14.5 hours to Spokane, a different country. Talk about just how the fans brought you in there, and then also roll that into just the feeling of your first couple years pro and the boys that were there. What sticks out when I bring these things up? Freddie Clayson, fucking hilarious. Like, oh my God, that guy was funny. He's in your Instagram all over the place. Talk about the off the ice transition out of Peace River all the way through in those first years of junior to the first couple years in Binghamton. What stands out for the boys off the ice?
Yeah, well, the first move was to Grand Prairie. I remember I was with my wife already at that time, and I dropped her off at home, and I remember driving back into Peace River and just bawling at 16 years old, thinking, I'm moving away. Like, I'm moving 2 hours down the road. Like, we go to Grand Prairie frequently to just, do a Costco run or something now. But in my mind, that was a big step. I'm leaving my boys. I'm leaving everything behind, my parents. Like, it's only 2 hours, but you're not waking up in your own bed anymore. I don't know anyone on this team. But I also think that helped me make the team, having that mindset, because I was so distraught from leaving that I truly put it in my mind like, well, I've already made this team. Like, I could have easily left and been like, well, if training camp doesn't go good, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be home. And that's exactly what would have happened, is I would have been home. But I just had that mentality that, well, I've already made this team, so I have to move, and I'm sad about that. So I went through all of that transition. That was the first move. Getting that out of the way, that really helped me with taking off to Spokane and obviously across the country to another country in upstate New York. But yeah, like Spokane, I mean, I was fortunate the whole way through, very fortunate with coaches, the group we were in. But then you look at it, and that's the hockey world. You know, it's not very often that bad people sneak through the cracks. Like I always say that, no, I had really good coaches. Well, if you talk to most people, they had really good coaches because they're coaching at the professional level, whether it's support staff. You know, we have all those guys that book hotels, the equipment managers. Like this is a heartbeat of a hockey team. And that's who really makes you feel like you're at home. And they're so used to it. So getting to Spokane, that was an incredible experience. It was strange because I was 19, so I was an older rookie. But having that said, I knew I'd have an impact right away. And I guess I did. I mean, my first game in the Western League was in Kamloops, had a goal and assist, and just an immediate bond with a few guys, had a great billet family. And then from there, well, I guess, yeah, looking at it, I think the first bus trip was to Brandon, Manitoba. And that was a 24-hour bus trip. So you want to get used to a couple of guys around you, get comfy, get to know each other. And it was incredible. And speaking of Baldy, I joined the team. I flew into Abbotsford. They played in Chilliwack. And then the next night, I played my first game in Abbotsford, in Kamloops. And I came on the bus after, and I thought, okay, a little bit nervous here. Like, what's the seating arrangement? Where am I going to sit? Who am I going to sit with? I'm a rookie. I'm 19, but I got to double up, I imagine. And I walk on the bus, and Baldy and our goalie at that time, Reader, who was just these were two peas in a pod. They're sitting pretty much right behind the coaches. Big beards, men. I'm thinking, these are not young guys, you know? So I speculated that something must have happened. It was quite early in the season. Something did happen, off-ice situation, you know, just after training camp. Sure enough, these guys ended up in the front. So that was kind of my introduction to it, and just the mutual relationship between Baldy and us. Just picturing the 6'6" monster just sitting in the front of the bus, like, go find your seat pretty much, you know? So got into that, and then ended up on that Brandon road trip. And that was just, I'll run a quick story, just kind of how things unfolded pretty quick, relationship-wise and all of that. Brandon was I think that was 5 games. After 5 games, we made that trip to Brandon. And that was a big moment for me, not only, you know, for relationships on our team. I felt like the couple weeks had gone by, things were growing. Brandon was the first NHL interview that I had from the Toronto Maple Leafs. I couldn't believe that. After our breakfast, my head coach, Don Nockbar, who was awesome, he swung by the table. He grabbed 3 guys, and he said, someone wants to talk to you. And it was myself, Brady Brassart, and Anthony Bardero.
Brady Brassart, yep.
Brady Brassart, you saw him in Iowa as well. And we ended up one by one having an interview. And I remember this guy walked in with a Toronto Maple Leafs golf shirt on. And like 2 weeks ago, I'm playing Tier 2 junior, getting told that, like, because of my eligibility, because of this, because of that, we'll have you back next year, blah, blah, blah. Like, and now I'm sitting across the table from one of the amateur scouts from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and just a surreal moment, you know. Then I had a wake-up call that next night, was against Michael Furland. I don't know if you remember him.
Fought him,
Tough as nails, man.
Yep.
Tough as nails. But I'll give myself the benefit of the doubt on this one. So Kenton Miller, who just an incredible human being. If you want to drop the nicest person you can ever imagine, it's Kenton Miller. So I was rooming with Kenton Miller, Mitch Holmberg, who's a really skilled player. And there was another room that ended up with a sickness in there. So my early best friend from Spokane, I right away said, you got to come into our room. So we had 4 guys in our room. And we ended up shooting cards throughout the evening, and it got a little bit later. And Kenton Miller, being just who he is, he shut her down. And so he's sleeping. The 3 of us, Homer, Galler, and myself, we're just shooting cards, and it's probably 3 a.m. at this point. We have a game the next night, and I have Michael Furlan on my head, and it's almost a bit of a coping strategy. Like, well, if I don't have to lay in bed, I'm distracted by this card game. I don't have to think about this fight. I knew it was coming. And then we decided to just, and this is where, you know, the growth of relationships really comes in. I told the boys, I said, let's hide Miller's phone. I said, let's change the alarm clock. We had 7 a.m. breakfast, 8 o'clock meeting. So let's fuck with Miller here a little bit.
Oh, boy.
So changed the alarm clock to like 8:07, hid his phone so we couldn't just grab it to check the time. We all climbed into bed, turned the lights off, and then we set some noise off just to get everyone kind of waking up. But keep in mind, this is 3 a.m. And Kenton Miller shoots out of bed. You can see him looking for his phone. He sees the alarm clock. It's 8:07. The meeting started 7 minutes ago. But this is 3 a.m, man. Like, these are small moments in your career that you realize, like, just how special things behind the scenes, the camaraderie, all of that. And this guy is fully dressed in his suit. Tie is buttoned up. He's got the door to the hotel wide open, telling the boys, like, hurry up. He went through the whole thing. He brushed his teeth, the whole 9 yards. And then we just start laughing, like, we can't contain it anymore. And then finally he realizes it's 3 a.m, not 8:07, 7 minutes late for the meeting. And so little moments like that. And then I had to, the next night, the fight ended up happening. And that was a wake-up call. Like, boy, A, take care of yourself the night before a game. And B, the AJHL was much crazier, but there are some tough boys now in the Western Hockey League. And that was the biggest gap. So it was a road trip that really, ignited that next step of, like, just learning, relationships, growth, having fun within the game, keeping things light. And things kind of just kept going from there.
That's a fucking story right there. That's
good little, just an innocent little prank, and just part of the whole development. And then obviously from there ended up getting drafted to Ottawa in the 6th round, which I was thrilled about. I won't say that Ottawa was number one on my list of teams that I wanted to get drafted by, just based on my own identity and being a boy from out west. I thought there was better fits, but I also thought Chris Neal is coming to the end of his time, and this might line out really well. Obviously didn't. Brian Murray is who drafted me. He ended up falling ill, and Pierre Dorian took over the reins there. And ultimately, Pierre and myself never had a relationship. I don't think he ever saw the value in me. That's extremely discouraging, all the way through. As much as I had my own pitfalls, I was always willing to put in the work. And obviously my willingness on the physical end of things, I just felt the level of respect was never there. And I knew pretty early on, while I was in Ottawa system, that this is not going to work out. But ultimately led to great experiences, great moments, earning a paycheck, playing the game. And then thank goodness for Craig Heisinger in Manitoba. That was my one offer. I had one offer after my entry level. We had a lot of early traction, and then it ultimately came down to a PTO. And that's when you came into the picture and entered my life, and earning a job. And very grateful. Spent 3 seasons in Winnipeg for an incredible organization.
It's all timing, isn't it, man? Like, people can talk about all they want, but life just goes the way it goes, and you can't control those things, man. You had 284 penalty minutes, leading the league, 17 points. You're a contributor. There's no reason you don't get games that year in the NHL. That's just from the outside. I'm feeling the more as we talk here, you are literally the Western small town version of me, man. Our minds think very much alike. The way we were so over gung-ho about reading which lineups and where the guys were, the tough, like, trying to piece it all together. Man, very similar, but you just led with your damn head, dude. I never had to fight 46 times to do it. You did those 46, and I had the 10 fight rule put in the OHL. I got saved from having a season like that. I was gonna, because you did it, and then Ty Bilkey did it, and I'm thinking, now it's my turn, right? You had the 46, then he had the 43 or something in the O, and I'm like, this is how I got to get noticed. I got to be a little bit better player than Bilkey, like Kramer, and get noticed to do something here. And thankfully, I was able to lead the league with 14 and get my look in there. But I was doing all the same things you were, trying to piece things together. So, man, but then again, that's where the journeys diverge. I went down to the draft. You're up in Peace River, and I see in an article that you just couldn't handle the pressure. Everybody's watching it, and you went up to your room, because I was in New York City, and my family's, let's go sightseeing, and I'm like, shut up, leave me alone in the hotel, in the air conditioning, away from the humidity in New York City. I just want to get to this draft and get this over with. I was freaking out.
Yeah, it's a moment to go through. And then there's a whole other wave that has to come with it, right? Like, I remember, it's one thing to get drafted. It's a huge accolade. It's a huge accomplishment. And then I went back for my 20-year-old season, had a really good 20-year-old season. I thought, 22 goals that year. My goal was for 2020, 200. And 2020, 20 goals, 20 assists, 20 fights, 200 penalty minutes. I came shy on the assists by a couple, but it was a good enough season to get an offer from Ottawa. And I remember sitting in the same room that I was sitting in while I got drafted, and like the highs and lows of all this. And I remember thinking to myself, like, you've done it, you achieved it. There's only 1,500 NHL contracts out there and available. and you're getting offered one of them. But there was this big part of me that just thought, don't do it. Like, I was so close to not signing that NHL contract. I was ready to get to work. I thought, fuck it. I am so done. Like,
Really?
and that was at 20 years old, 20, 21
Really?
years old. I was
I
very
would
close.
never have guessed that, brother.
It was not this like once an NHL contract was on the table, it wasn't this joyous experience. It was a very rewarding experience. You see some dollar figures that you're extremely excited about that, I got $50 in my bank account right now, and I can certainly accelerate this overnight if I put pen to paper. But there was this level of me thinking like, well, how difficult was the last 4 years? I don't know what the American Hockey League is like, but I can guess. It's not like it's a 1-year commitment. Once you sign this thing, you're in it for 3 years. And it was a heavy weight. Beforehand, I was just taking everything, as much as I had a long-term goal in front of me, I was taking things extremely just as they came. And there was not one part of me that didn't think I could handle what came up throughout my career playing junior hockey. And then this finally came up. And here's a legitimate contract. And I was very close. I was very close to not signing that. I was very close to just getting on with life and leaving that on the table and just thinking, I don't need this commitment to my life. I don't need, I wasn't a goal scorer. It's tough to commit to just knowing that this identity, this persona that I've built over the last 4 years now has to carry on for another 3. And it's only going to ramp up. And what I noticed, people always ask me, who was the toughest guy you fought? Well, easy answers: Cam Janssen, Pierre-Luc Letourneau-Leblond, Fraser McLaren, Mike Liambis. But what really hit me when I got to the pro level and walking around the locker room, like Mike Hoffman, a purebred goal scorer. This guy was strong as an ox. He was killing it in the fitness test with dumbbell press, like 105-pound dumbbells or whatever. That's what Chris Neal was doing. So I started realizing, like, man, you're not playing with kids anymore. So it doesn't matter who you fight. Everyone is tough now because everyone's a man now. And once it's 22, 23, 24 years old, like, and you end up in a little bit of a mix-up. And those guys were almost scarier when they had, like, those guys that fought 4 or 5 times in the season. They didn't have a reputation, but they could knock your head off your shoulders. Those guys were the guys to fear. And it's like, I don't want to go up. I remember Carter Ashton. He was a first-rounder playing in Tri-City. That guy almost punched my head off my shoulders. Thankfully, I had my helmet on, but it still dropped me. And I thought, like, there's no winning here for me because I should win this fight. And here's this first-rounder who's scoring a ton of goals. He's creating offense, and he's almost knocking my – so it's a lose-lose situation. If you win the fight, well, big deal. You beat a first-rounder. No, like, these guys were tough, and it was everyone.
The levels to it are just insane. And man, you're just bringing so much value to fight fans out there and people who are in the fight in their own lives, because they're hearing like, man, you just chomping at the bit to leave Peace River, but you leave, you cry, but you're like, fuck it, I'm doing this. And then everything just goes bang, bang, bang into line. And now you're sitting with this contract, which the year before you're freaking out if you're going to draft or not. Now you're like, do I want to fucking do this? Like, people really got to understand the weight. You were clearly, like me, thinking about how you're going to get there. But once it got there, it's like, wow, this is something I'm going to do. So did it come down to conversation with Kelsey? I know how impactful she's been in your life, and you had her. Every guy I've had so far has had this amazing woman with them all throughout the journey. Did she impact that? Did you guys sit down and say, hey, are we going to do this? Like, what are we thinking here?
Yeah, obviously those conversations took place with Kels. Like, and she's been such a huge part of my career, and more importantly, just who I am as a person, the mother of my children, like our children. I can't be more grateful. And sometimes I say it, like, what I've put her through, but ultimately we walk through this journey together. Like, it's not easy for a wife to sit at home and have her husband come through the door. Like, the lights get shut off at the end of a hockey game. And a lot of time, I don't think people realize that. And, I remember Josh Manson, he was in Norfolk and he split me open. I came home, I had 16 stitches across my face, a big shiner, my eye was shut. And I walked through the door, and it's like, a plumber doesn't walk through the door like this, or an electrician doesn't walk through the door like this. Like, this is very abnormal for her, it became normal, obviously, because we were dating at a young age. She came through, she started to just see, and I always instilled some comfort level in her, like, as we all do. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Because sometimes I look back on it, I think, at what point did not one adult enter the conversation when I was 19 fighting 46 fucking times? Like, hello, coaches, GMs, parents, anyone. And that's not putting, and I don't fault any of them, because I go back to the situation. Like, I put my parents in a very comfortable position. I knew what I was doing. I put my girlfriend at that time, in a comfortable position. My GMs, coaches, all that, it's a different side of things. You got the business side of things, you got, and then there's just, you're building a hockey team, and this is required on a hockey team. And in their perspective, they're giving me a great opportunity. So it's just a transaction, and it's just how things have evolved now over the last little while, that I think to myself, like, did nobody come and say, like, it might be in your best interest to slow down? So fairly interesting to go through all of that. Fast forward again to the contract and almost leaving it on the table. It did come down to just conversations with, obviously my agent was heavily involved, and he told me, like, fuck it, do what you want to do. Like, he was very supportive. Nobody pushed me to go this route. So ultimately I made the decision on my own. But it did, I have my support staff, my parents, good friends that play the game, buddies from Spokane, and ultimately said, like, commit for a 3-year window and see where it goes.
Right. Well,
there we go.
It's so interesting how similar we are, but then we also have our differences, right? Like, I was, because of the pain I'd been through, my father, my upbringing, the trauma I'd had, people, if they would have suggested to me to slow down, they would have gotten an earful, and that's why nobody said it to me. I would have told them to shut the fuck up, because this is what I'm doing. Get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah.
You had that killer instinct, maybe even more so with me, but you had this groundedness to be like, do I want to do this? Like, I already know how to work hard. I know I'm going to be fine working another career. I have other interests. I've seen my family work hard being immigrants. Like, you seem to have this groundedness with you. So it's very fascinating to me that I never would have guessed in a million years on a cue card of answers, Krames was wondering about signing the contract. So as you then make the decision to go, now you're going across, the continent, the country, to another country, you start doing the job. Did you feel like there was a split you dealing with this life? Was it someone you had to put on to do the job on nights, or were you able to set back in that you made the commitment? Or was it something that you were wrestling with? Was there stuff you dealt with off the ice to kind of deal with the job? Like, take me through those times after making that decision in this mental mind frame.
Yeah, I stepped in fully once and I think that's just how I was raised as well. Like, you're going to commit to something, you do it, and you're going to do it 100%. So I did it. And then, I never really thought twice about it after that. And I was happy to be continuing the journey, I guess. And I guess if you want to just fast forward to another 3 years, like, here I am leaving a relatively substantial contract on the table, potentially leaving it on the table, to now playing 3 years. And then in my 4th year of pro, fighting to make $65,000, like, hoping I can get that contract, where it's like, it's so different once you're in it again, and then you still feel like you have more to give. And I guess that's a lot of times why we say the financials don't play much of a role in any of this and the fluctuations of that. But, I'm looking at these numbers early on, and I'm thinking, I'm going to leave that on the table to go become a power engineer or an electrician, join the trades, whatever it might be, blue collar work. And then you fast forward 4 years, and it's like, I'm fighting and I'm doing everything I can to hold on to this career. And I held on to it for another 3 seasons.
Dude, it's incredible. You only had one offer after leading the American Hockey League in penalty minutes with 17 points, too. It makes absolutely no fucking sense, man. Did anger well up in you there?
I think that's what really propelled me to fight for that contract, is because I thought, now I'm not getting what I deserve, And early indications, Ottawa's going to re-sign you. And I think that's maybe what threw us off. We didn't chase anything else. We waited almost till free agency, and then we got news that Ottawa's not going to re-sign me. And then we started chasing. And that goes. Like, if you don't get anything in the first day, 2 days, 3 days of free agency, things get really strange. And it becomes frustrating. You're seeing guys around the league that's the reality. Like, I try at this point in my life, no comparison. I don't compare myself to anybody in this world, because I don't know what the fuck they have going on. They can look like they have everything going on. They don't. the flash. They don't like, so, but in that world, all you do is compare. You put a monetary value on yourself as per comparisons of other contracts, but then you're also comparing that you're like, how does this work? I'm sitting here July 15th. I don't have a contract, but so and so have contracts, you know? And I think it was that first year Binghamton brought in Zach Stortini, and I thought, like, there's my replacement. So you start to see yourself legit get replaced. And that's where, as much as I stepped all in once I signed the contract, I never really found the American Hockey League or the pro level to be the same as especially my time in Spokane. And in my role, I felt it very difficult where we're sitting here in a locker room. I know I'm not going up to the NHL this season. I know I'm most likely not going down to the East Coast Hockey League. But there's this weird mentality in this locker room that everyone's happy to be here, but nobody wants to be here.
Yeah.
So now that common goal of winning a championship is out the door. And me sticking up for these guys and doing what I did the previous 4 seasons in junior hockey, it didn't feel the same. And it felt a lot more empty, just based on everyone wanting to get the fuck out of there. That's the bottom line.
I could not agree more, man. The difference is unbelievable. You end up fighting for your contract for yourself, and you got to pretend like it's for everybody else. It's very strange. But I see in these articles I'm reading about you that you leaned in with Patrice Cormier and you said, hey, adapt or fucking die, Corms. Like, let's fucking just, you find that safe place, that teammate that gets you and you vibrate with, and you're like, let's get through this thing. And then you're a fucking safe place for all the young guns coming in. So you cultivated that role, and your coach, Vincent, gave you so much props with the kind of guy you are, just remaking yourself and being like, fuck it, I can feel this way, but I'm coming to the rink and I'm going to be a place that's good for guys to be around. I'm going to do my job, like, because that's just who you are.
Yeah, that's bottom line. And, you know, some of it's partially motivated for your own safety net, that it's like, I need to adapt and I need to take on a certain role that adds value to this organization. And it might not be the role that I wish I was in. Obviously, everyone wants a big role on the ice. And with Pascal Vincent, that was interesting because when I first went to Manitoba, it was Keith McCambridge, who was like, this guy was so dialed. He was a straight shooter. He was a great coach, but we had a terrible season that year. He ended up getting relieved of his duties, and Pascal Vincent, who was the assistant coach for the Jets, came down to coach in the American League in Manitoba. He wouldn't look at me. Like, just early on, there was such a disconnect, and I always had great relationships with my coach, and I thought it was important for me in my role to have that relationship with my coach. And Pazzi never played any pro hockey. I took some weight in that as well.
Yep.
And so I spent pretty much that entire season in shambles and walking on eggshells. Like, I don't add any value to this organization, or certainly my head coach doesn't see it that way. Yeah. I'm doing my best. You know, we got young guys, Brendan Lemieux, Jack Roslovic, young guys that are on that team that I knew the importance of our veteran group. Yeah. Alex Grant, you played with him. He was, I had him in Binghamton. But Patrice Cormier was huge, Peter Stojkovic, myself. Like, we had a really good older group, and I knew the value of that. Finally, we were in Rockford, which you're familiar with, and as a road team, horrible place to play.
Horrible.
And I remember coming to the locker room, I seen the lineup, and there was a guy, he came from the East Coast, and they were going to give him a couple of games at the expense of me sitting in the stands. And this would have been late, maybe February, March, maybe in the season. And I still hadn't had a valuable conversation with Pascal Vincent at that point. I remember going in the office, and I just broke down. Like, it was, and the door, like, it just went wide open, and this guy's demeanor changed entirely. And he was almost like, what's up? Thinking that this was Krames being upset from a direct impact. He's not playing. This player's in the lineup. And I told him, I was like, Pazzi, it's not that. Like, it's all over. It's the first realization that, like, not only is the NHL dream over, but it's done. Like, I don't bring value to this league anymore. And it's just, talking about vulnerabilities, like, I laid it on the line for this guy. And that completely changed our relationship. And I started adding value to that locker room in completely different areas, to the point that it didn't matter if I was in a lineup. It was actually discouraging when I'd come in the locker room and see my name in the lineup. Like, fuck, I'm playing tonight. Like, that's not where I add value to this team. Like I had value off the ice. I had value with these young guys, walking through different scenarios with them, just keeping things loose in the locker room. And I took so much pride in that. And I really became accustomed to watching a hockey game from the press box, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I was put in a situation that I could give coaches feedback from that perspective. And it's amazing how just conversation, good communication can lead to something like that, that you go from being so belittled and feeling like you're nothing to opening up, having these conversations and saying, okay, well, where do you add value? And at the same time saying, like, I'm not a burden to you. I'm not a burden to your team. If I'm in or out of the lineup, like, don't put any weight on that. Like, I'm going to bring something to this group that you need and that you're going to want. And we got on the same page. And ultimately, he fought for me to come back that third season, which without that conversation, he would have never went to bat for me. And from that moment forward, Pazzi and myself had a great relationship. That was the one coach I really had to earn it, and I had to earn it without fighting, without doing anything on the ice. It was completely different.
Wow. That is a beautiful story, man, and a beautiful share. And I honestly can sit here and say I could not have done that. You are a fucking stand-up man. And man, vulnerability, true vulnerability is when we give the other person in a serious situation like the opportunity to judge us. And you just said, fuck it, this is how I feel. And he just saw that, and he never even had a call. He didn't even look at you before that. And after that, you build that relationship. Because reading that article, it's like I would have thought you guys hit it off from day one. That's incredible, man. So I guess you answered my next question of like that season after that third season where he fought to have you back. You played 26 games and you step away from pro hockey at 26 years old. And now I know why. Like, if we had done this interview starting at this point, I would have been so confused. But now it makes total fucking sense.
Yeah. And that's where we say, like, just with due time, you grow as an individual, your perspective in life changes. And that's what makes it such an interesting journey.
Fuck, man. That is so cool. So you're just like, I started as a kid crazy for this journey. I was a fan of the game first. I fought my way to this level and I got to this point. You know what? Timing, people's changing. Brian Murray gets sick. All these things happen. But you just said, fuck it, I'm going to bring value in a different way. And you walked away from the game, shoulders back, head held high. And you're like, I got a whole fucking life ahead of me. I'm healthy. Fuck, I got through 40. You had 170 fights in such a compact time, dude. To be walking away the way you did, what a fucking gift.
Yeah. Yeah. And I consider myself very fortunate for it. But just not an easy journey. Not an easy journey. Dude. And when I look back on it, like, there's some things that still carry some weight in my own life now that I think, like, fuck me, that had, call it a negative impact. But there's a lot where I'll just walk around and I'll start smiling because I think that happened. And I lived that. That was a lived experience, and there was a lot of them.
Does anything come up? Anything come up that you want to touch on?
Geez, a lot of things when it comes to just the camaraderie, the people that you meet along the way. Like, that's the biggest thing. I look at guys like Louis Caparuso. We still stay in touch, and, like, that's my absolute soulmate. And, there was such an instant connection. So there's him. But then there's the big, and then just individual. So I could list off so many. Dave Jasinski, we talked about him earlier. But ultimately, it comes down to a lot of the experience. Like, we ended up in Lyon, France for training camp in my third year of Binghamton. And an experience like that was just wild. Something that I hold on to still to this day. And I shake my head like, did that actually happen? And it was just such a...
It's a long way from Peace River.
It's a long way from Peace River. And those are moments that you realize where this game takes you. And that Lyon, France trip, like, Syracuse went, Bingo and Syracuse went. We were going to play each other twice down there in France. And then in between us playing, we were going to play against a French pro team. And I was like, wow, this is a great experience. So we get down, we ended up seeing Syracuse. We're at the same hotel. And we were a rival, and they were tough too. Like, they had Eric Nielsen, Luke Witkowski. They had a lot of call it meatheads. And this was, like, I want to say we led the league in fights, our team. Syracuse was not far behind us. Wilkes-Barre, like, we had a really tough division, or at least conference. We were all standing around together in the lobby of the hotel, and we were like, this is great. Like, we're on vacation. NHL training camp is behind us now. We all have our spot here. And we're like, let's just make this a sleeper. So that was our mindset going into it. Like, we don't need to go nuts here. We're on a bit of a Euro trip. Everything's covered. We went out that night. We were at one table. Syracuse was at a table a little bit far away, but tables were sending each other beers back and forth. Like the vibes were just right. And I thought this is going to be great. And I'm thinking about Matt Corrente. I'm thinking about a few guys that I could fight, but I'm like, there's no purpose in fighting here in France. Like, yeah, we're being evaluated, but the staff is pretty small. Like, yeah. I'm going to make this team. We don't need to do this. And we had a collective agreement as well, just saying like, let's just chill here. We're in Europe. And we went out. Maybe the first 10 minutes of the first game was a sleeper. One hit changed everything. The next, call it 110 minutes of hockey over the next two games was, I had never been part of something like that. These buildings were tiny, but they were completely jam-packed to the ceiling, and they watched some North American boys go at it. Oh. Probably over, like maybe around a dozen fights in the two nights. It was pure savageness. And then we had to play the French team. And I looked at their roster. They had one North American League player on their team. Everyone on that team was under 6 feet tall. Like it was a small group of players. And they were a skilled group of players. We were big. Like that's when we had Guillaume Lepine, who had a shaved head. We had Mike Sadeo, who pretty much had a shaved head. We had myself. We had Dave Jasinski, who stood 6'3", 6'4". Like, it was a massive group. And we're all getting dressed in the locker room before this game against France. And we're like, what are the rules here? Like, because in the American League, you have to wear your helmet for warm-up. And we all dream of going no bucket for warm-up. And it was like a last-minute decision, like, no helmets for warm-up. And it was like, let's do it. And we had an old coach, Steve Sterling. And he just, I remember walking past him on the bench. He had his game card with him. And the first guy walks out, no helmet. Second guy, third guy, I ended up coming through the lineup. And he's just standing there with his game card in front of his face like these fucking idiots. And we step out on the ice. And Lepine, Sadeo, myself, Diz, like a bunch of big dudes were just lined up on the red line with no helmets on. Some guys shaved heads, just staring down this poor group of men just trying to play an exhibition game. Like those little moments. And so the whole trip, the mindset was, let's be chill here. Let's get in, let's get out, let's experience Paris. Let's, have some fun before the season gets started. No, it turned into a bloodbath. We ended up elevating things against the French team. And it was just, so moments like that without signing that contract, I don't have those experiences. And there's 1,000 in between.
Oh, I'm with the amount of connection you clearly have with your teammates, from everything I've heard about you, I don't doubt that at all. There's so many other stories that you could probably just sit there as you're building that amazing cabin you're putting together for years now, living this life. You retire, you have your first daughter, you have a second daughter, you've got your wife. Like, what have you been doing, man? How life has been after it? How's the transition been from, someone who obviously had to step into that role, but always had a groundedness to say, I got a life after this. So how was that at 26?
Yeah, interesting. Really interesting. You go from experiencing your dream career. There's nothing better than collecting a paycheck for playing any professional sport. We know that. Even with all the trial and tribulations in between, it's still the best thing in the world. Now, fast forward to my retirement, I came home. I had a decent opportunity in business in a commercial tire shop. So there was opportunity for me, and I always had a passion for business, and I thought that's what I wanted to get into. So it was a perfect situation for me to walk into. First job, first opportunity, get into it. But having that said, there was a lot of nights just laying there being envious of the guys that had a journeyman plumber, or they were a journeyman electrician. They were established. And it was like, here I am starting at zero. And not only that, I've carried an identity for 10 years. So how are we going to shake this? Because what I did for the last 10 years doesn't bring any value to what I'm going to do today. A lot that I learned brings value to what I do today, but deep in my core and my identity, that needs to shift. And that was extremely hard.
Fuck.
And that I'm still working on today. I'm in a much greater place, but I put in a daily effort. Like, I truly do. And I have to. Like, I have systems in place now in my own life that I implement, and it helps me, just different coping strategies and different efforts throughout just raising children.
Yeah.
dealing with a career, all of this. But I'll take you back to kind of the start. The first opportunity never worked out, and it drove me nuts to the point that, I was maybe sleeping a couple hours a night, 2-3 hours a night. I was extremely stressed. We were a cash strapped business, and things were not working out the way I envisioned. Beyond the struggles of the business, there was no passion for the business. Nobody wants to buy tires. I learned that pretty quick. So there was no excitement in the sale. There was no, your staff, all of that. Like, these are things managing a company that I really struggled with. And I just couldn't find the joy and the excitement in that anymore. The cabin, however, that was a replacement, and that was my new identity. I have 91 acres right along the river, and it's a beautiful piece of land. And I was destined to build this log cabin by myself, like hands off. My brother had joked a couple times where he grabbed the nail and he went to go hammer it into the wall. And I said, "You fucking put one nail in this wall." I said, "That's the end of you." So I wanted to put every last nail into that building. It took me the better part of 4 summers to build it, but that really helped me in a lot of ways, but it drove me nuts as well. So my next career and my current career, one of the larger employers in Peace River is a pulp mill. So that's what I ended up getting into, and I'm operating there. So those are 12-hour shifts. They're not easy, and they're night shifts. And you're looking at things. You're like, I'm trying to raise a family. I'm trying to build a career now, but I'm also trying to build this cabin. And that's arguably what I'm most passionate about. So if I would work a night shift, I would have to be in at 5:30, but I would get up at noon, do 4 hours on the cabin, go work a 12-hour shift at the pulp mill, come home, sleep for a couple hours, build for 4 or 5 hours, go work a 12-hour shift. And I consistently did this for a year or 2 years, and it sucked the life out of me. And I was burning the candles at both ends, and I knew I was, but it was a lot of distraction from the things that I was struggling with. Yep. And I wasn't taking care of any of that. I was just masking it. So I was staying busy. Things were somewhat good. And then through all of that, I ended up, early signs, I ended up with some knee pain one day. And I thought, oh, fuck, just an old hockey injury. So I go through the whole system, start with your local doctor, can't figure it out, go to the next doctor, finally get sent for an MRI. Nothing on the MRI. Okay, that's kind of strange. Knee's getting a little bit worse. And then I get sent out for a scope, and the orthopedic surgeon ended up finding a heavy coating of inflammation on my knee. And I thought, well, all right, what is that? But I kept going, kept building the cabin, kept neglecting sleep, neglecting nutrition, going to the pulp mill, just kept being as busy as I could possibly be. As I was waiting for that scope to happen, similar symptoms in my right knee flared up. And I thought, okay, now we might have a bit of a problem. So finally I get referred to a rheumatologist, and both knees are heavily inflamed at this point, and I'm having a difficult time just walking. But overall quality of life is still there. It's just my knees affected. So that was in 2023. And at that time, it was quite fast, but he diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis. And I thought, I'm too fucking young for this. And my mindset, when I was healthy, I thought, arthritis, like, you have to get up and move. Like, that's the cure for all arthritis. We know that. And that was my mindset with everything, pretty much any disease. You got to eat right. You got to exercise. You got to sleep right. You got to just take care of yourself. And that disease is not going to affect your life so bad. We started the first treatment for it. That ended up being a failure. And the second treatment was a failure. Third treatment, I remember the rheumatologist told me after the first appointment, like, this is the treatment. Come back in 12 weeks. You're going to be a brand new man. I thought, perfect. Let's get this going again. I want to get back on with my life. Fast forward to almost 3 years now. I finally ended up in the U of A hospital, or U of A, for, and these academic centers are much more elite than every other level of healthcare. But this disease ended up progressing from my knees into my elbows, into my spine. I just got a PET scan done last week, and it really showed the areas that are affected. So both knees, both elbows, my one index finger from my C7 down to my T8 is heavily inflamed, and then my left hip. So with all of the things that you're trying to navigate through life, throw in a serious health condition. And like Gabe's, this thing has knocked me down and beaten me up worse than Jansen, Liambis, Laterno LeBlanc, like all these guys tenfold. Like right now, just to find an answer, I'll take a licking from any of those guys today because the pain that I've endured from this illness is much worse and much harder to cope with than any of that shit that I dealt with. So, kind of from one thing to the next, and just here we are today. But again, through illness and through disability, you learn a lot. And my perspective has shifted. Like, you want to talk about something humbling, and it's a chronic illness. And when you get knocked down and you go from being an athlete and looking at people and having judgment, like my judgment towards people that were not athletic or, just lacked ability, I was like, no, how can you not do that?
Get off
To
your
the
ass.
point that I couldn't get out of bed. A lot of times I could not get out of bed. My wife would be, so here I am going from a former athlete to my wife carrying me under my shoulders just to get me to the bathroom, in and out of the bathtub like I was a 90-year-old man. And things are a little bit under control right now, suppressed via oral steroid. And on March 12th, I'll go back to the U of A and start my next treatment. But it's been a hell of a journey. And that's been part of the 8 years since I've been out of the game. So a lot has happened. I still strive to be busy and, but that busy looks a little bit different now due to the physical capabilities. But if I look at what I've done in the last 8 years, I'm proud of a lot of it. I know that, I bit off more than I can chew. I burn the candle at both ends, but, and unfortunately through that, like, I think it's what I'm dealing with now health-wise is a direct correlation with the lifestyle I lived for a year and a half, those levels of stress, the lack of nutrition, the lack of eating in general based on gotta go. Mm-hmm. Like that was my mindset. Like I'd be so fucking pissed when someone would get in my way. Like I have stuff to do. I'd go to work talking about my work peers. Like if I could draw up a group of guys that I would want to work with and like the perfect situation to work with, it's these guys. And as much as I love them inside of work, love them outside of work. And they'd be asking me like, you want to come golfing tomorrow, first day off? You want to do this? I'd be like, buddy, like I have a cabin on the go. I'm trying to raise a family. Like, and this cabin completely consumed me. Like 16-hour days. Like it was the amount of work when you build anything, especially on your own, it's just time consuming. And I thought, if I'm not putting a nail in there, who is? So that was the mindset I had. And I neglected a lot of my social groups and my sleep was neglected. Everything was neglected. Everything we need to flourish as a human being was neglected. And I put it all into this build that I thought is the remedy for my happiness. But ultimately, it killed me. Now it's the remedy for my happiness because I have a small log cabin in the bush to go to along the river. And it's like, it's not the same burden. It's not the same workload anymore. It's a place for my family to grow up and a place of serenity. And for a lot of things that I've learned over the last few years through therapy and through all of that, I instill that and I really instill it out on our land where it's true peace and true comfort.
Damn, dude. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, man, because the pain that we go through, not only physically and psychologically after we retire in our own journeys, it's like you said it best. I'd rather line up 100 Trevor Gillies in 5 in a row than deal with it. Right. And you just kept busy. That hamster wheel's going. You just said, fuck, I got to bury that thing. And just, this is what we do. We march forward. We're men. We go after it. We go forward. Well, what have you learned through that of going forward and having to, like you said, get humbled? What does your day look like now of taking care of yourself? How is that informed? How is this suffering informed the way you live now and how it's starting to get better?
Oh, well, the number one takeaway is just how humbling it is. Like very humbled through this ordeal, and really understanding what other people go through on a regular basis, whether it's between the years or in their own physical limitations. So that's a big takeaway from it. Other than that, what have I learned? Like you're talking pages here. I finally succumbed to the point, like my wife and I had talked about it many years, that therapy could benefit me. And I was always open to the idea, but never jumped into it. and finally ended up saying, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Like, what's the harm in this? And I completely shifted my perspective on that as well. Like, I still, for the last couple of years now, I've been working with the same guy. He's got a sports background as well. And I probably read 100 bios of different psychologists prior to jumping into this, just knowing that I need to find somebody that I'm going to connect with.
That's what you
And
do. You do your
exactly,
research.
right, exactly. Do your research, do your homework. And if it's, don't be afraid of making change if you have to make change. But, I introduced this guy into my life, and my perspective of therapy in general has shifted so much that it's like, I feel so excited when I go into this because this is just my coach. Like, it's when we look at therapy and look at the stigma behind mental health, and it's like, and obviously this has shifted drastically, but let's not kid ourselves, especially amongst men. Like, we still have this mindset that there's a serious weakness there if you have to succumb to speaking to somebody else. I just look at it completely different, where it's like, well, first of all, I'm doing this for my wife and my children. That's the biggest ones. And then beyond that, like, I need to live in peace. So I do it for myself as well. And in my healing journey here of what I'm going through with inflammatory arthritis, I need to be at peace. And I still struggle to find it at times. I still find myself being 100 miles an hour. I still find myself being too intense in certain situations, not being understanding, getting overwhelmed, overworked in others. But ultimately, I look at what I'm going through now and the work that I've put in, and there's just this level of excitement, especially when working with a therapist, that things like that. I think, like, this is just a coach. There is, like, eliminate the weakness entirely from all this. Like, why don't we say that we're this strong or we're this good at something, but we're just trying to get better? It would be similar to, call it a 14-year-old athlete that might be showing some promise. If they're getting a specialized coach or coach implemented into their life, it's not because they're bad at something or weak. It's because they're trying to get to the next level, taking the next step in their sport. When we look at what we deal with on a regular basis, especially men, and I don't want to discount women, but men just have this guard over them that thinks like, fuck that, I'm not doing it. But I'll tell you, like, I've done it, and there is no weakness behind it. It's extremely empowering, and what you learn from it, incredible. And I would encourage anyone that has those thoughts, like, should I do it? Should I not? And I found that interesting too, especially in a blue collar world. Like, I come from you look Peace River up, you know where it's at. It's in a rural part of the world. It's blue collar work. And we know generally how men think and act in this environment. But I always find it incredible that in a group setting, dialogue is of one way, and it's at times rough around the edges, and it's quite masculine. But then you talk to individuals one-on-one, and as soon as you show your own vulnerabilities, game over. Like, we're all the same, man. We all deal with the same bullshit. And that's when I say, trying to keep things out of my life or keeping things limited in my life. My nutritionist in Binghamton always said it, and I live by it still to this day. Less is more. And it's like, it's so true in so many aspects that less is more. And what I've done and the people that I've talked to, it's like, we're all the same, man. We pile shit up, and we make things so complex. And a lot of times, a lot of the people that I've talked to and some of my peers haven't taken that next step to get the necessary help. And it's like, man, there's just that much more happiness or that much more peace right on the other side of that call.
Brother. And it starts with guys like you from those environments that are bottled up by being vulnerable. And then you did it in pro hockey. Fuck, you have a story to tell. Then you come home and you do it here now. Dude, it's like the fights on the ice are one thing, and that's what brings the folks into this podcast, the interest in all the fun shit we talked about, but it's the fight we all have in life. And you said it. We all have our bullshit. We all have our own slice of our battle. But I just want to say, man, you are approaching it like a warrior. It took you a year and a half to go, hey, all right, figure it the fuck out. Let's dial back in here. And now you're just marching through it again. Everything is seasons where you take what you need, you learn from it, you just push forward, man. So you sharing this is going to help so many guys out there that identify with that. Your buddies, guys who have known you and watched your come up from that part of the country and the rural places are going to listen to this and be like, fuck, man, it's going to help open them up. You're going to get messages. That's going to end up helping you having those one-on-one discussions. Like, it's so beautiful when people start being involved, man. So I just honor you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And obviously I've followed you long enough here, Gabe's, and like I came back home, you carried on with your career. So I had the privilege of just watching you get your licks in the NHL. And, you know, I remember when I believe it was against Luch. I was sitting in Boston Pizza watching this. No, not Luch. That was Scotty Sabrin. But I remember watching one of your big fights against one of the big boys in the NHL, and I was having supper with my wife, and I just thought, like, here I am back home going through life again, and here's Gabe's chasing it, and he's finally at that level. And, you know, at that time, I really thought that it was only going one way for you. I didn't think you were going to stop at 50-some games, but it was a lot of fun to just, you know, see you as well, and then follow your social media journey where you really opened up and you had to go from what it looks like from the outside looking in, different identity shifts and different changes and, you know, ebbs and flows of life. And that's a lot of times how I look at things for myself as well. And I try to keep that in mind. And a big part of that is with this chronic illness that I'm dealing with is it good or is it bad? We don't know. Like, we really don't know. Because of what I'm dealing with now, eliminated me from being in other situations. So what would have happened in those situations? You know? So it's like there's an old story, and I won't get into that, but it's an old Chinese farmer where it's like, well, that's great news.
Yep.
You know,
I know that one, brother. The wisdom.
Right. Exactly. And I try to live my life a little bit like that now. Whereas beforehand, I was very reactive and just thought like, anything that happened fucked everything up. You know, the rain today, I can't get up to the cabin. Everything's fucked. This happened. Everything's fucked. You know, so it's like really try to just shift the mindset that it's like we're going to deal with the conditions as they come. And as things shift, it's happening for some rhyme or reason, and we're going to deal with it. So
what I say, what's for us can't miss us. What's for us can't miss us. Everything happens for a reason, brother. You're leaning into that wisdom. That's where I found a lot of solace. But you know for damn sure you're in the brotherhood with me and the fight boys. You need anything, I'm here for you, brother. I'm here for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's the same for you. And I think, you know, like I look at the community that you can lean on still, even though geography is not in our favor, your network is still there, you know? And like Craig Heisinger, the assistant GM of the Jets, and my GM in Manitoba, like this is the kind of character and kind of GM that everyone should want to play for. And the on-ice side, the opportunity he gave me to play hockey was one thing. Everything I've learned from him, like, and that he learned through the game, he ended up dealing with Rick Rippon and him were extremely close. And that's his story to share, of course, but they were extremely close. And he had a number of guys and experiences between, you know, myself coming in, myself departing before I arrived and after I left. But I look at this guy and I've leaned on him as well throughout this health journey. And he was right there. It was like not even batting an eye. And I know how busy these individuals are, but when push comes to shove, they're still there. And there's countless individuals that are still there.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Well, hey, if he wants to come on and chat about that, I would love to have him, because if he's influenced you that much and held space for you, now allowing you to hold space for yourself, and then you're going to hold space for guys that I'm sure are going to reach out after this pod comes live, man. It's such, I knew this was going to be such an awesome chat, man. From the second we were messaging and the excitement in your voice and your text, it was awesome, dude. So I feel like we could talk for literally 3 weeks and I would not get bored for 1 second, dude.
Oh, Gabe, I feel like we haven't even got started yet.
I know,
there's some stories and some stuff, and I don't know what you want to do for time here, but it's like there is stuff that you're right, because the journey is so similar. Like, I feel like I almost have to start a pod so I can ask you some questions, because I'm thinking of like, we shared the experience of living in Binghamton, New York too. We haven't had a chance to talk about that. Like, Des Moines, Iowa was one of my favorite places to go.
Binghamton was one of my worst times, most depressing times. There's no fucking sun there, man. I was having There's no sun. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
I was talking to my guys when I'm making the idea of this podcast. I'm like, you know, Rogan goes 3-4 hours. I'm like, fuck, I could go 10. Like, I just love talking to guys. Like, you got to keep it a little bit. But dude, if you want to come back on, we've got your hockey story, right? If you want to come back on and we jump down and go even a deeper rabbit hole after you listen to this and kind of say, hey, where do I want to dive deeper? Where do I want to, I can open up a bit more. I'm down for it, man.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's a lot that we can cover, a lot that we haven't covered. Like
Yeah.
there's a million stories in between, as you know.
Yeah.
And it's all the experiences and throughout the shared experience of playing the American Hockey League, guys that we've played with, guys that you had to, and like yourself, Gabes, you played with some pretty elite players, and that's pretty special. And seeing the different characteristics, it's pretty awesome.
Very fortunate, man. And as I went up, like you said, there's not a lot of guys that slip through the cracks as bad guys. I can count on multiple hands the kind of big stars that were amazing dudes and the ones that weren't. Like, it's mostly good people, good dudes. Everybody's on their own journey trying to figure their bullshit out, like you said. But hey, the hockey brotherhood is a special one, and the game's changing. It's growing, it's getting better. But having guys like us speaking to the young kids about what we're speaking about, opening up, being vulnerable, it's only going to aid them on their journeys as they go through the craziness that is pro hockey. I tell kids, how do I do to make it? I said, you just better get in your head real quick that everything happens for you, because if you don't, you're going to get sucked down with all the egos, the politics, the bullshit, the timing, the injuries. It is not for the faint of heart, but these conversations will help out, man. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. I know you turned down some other folks, and I'm just very grateful you came on the pod here.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be on it. I'm sure we're going to connect again. Like I said, as things went on, get a little more comfortable. This is out of my comfort zone and foreign territory for me, but I'm glad we did it. We can do it again one day and get more into the depth of some of the fun stories, some of the good stories, some of the guys we played with, played against, fought. But this was great, and great introduction to the pod world.
Hey, there you go. Amen, bro. You did great. You got a lot of passion in you. You got a lot of stuff to share, and it's so beautiful to hear someone talk and they just get lost in it. So I want to thank you so much. People, what an episode. I think people are going to resonate with this one a lot. I know my boy Ben Myers and After the Bell, which we do a 30 minutes after the pod, me and him and my spiritual mental health brother, we kind of chop it up and say, what did Krames, story bring up in us? And we chop it up back and forth about that. So it's going to be a great episode with all the things you provide us to talk about. So thank you so much, Darren Krames. Have a great fucking day, brother.
Yeah, you as well. Great seeing you, man. Take care.
Take care, pal.
Hey, Ben here from After the Bell and the Fight Plan podcast. I'm really excited to announce that I've been working with Gabriel on something we call the Next Arena. Now, this is built for somebody who's going through transitions in life, whether that be leaving the game, changing careers, or just looking to move forward with a little bit more purpose and a little bit more structure. We'll be announcing more on this soon, but until then, back to the podcast.
Namaste, fellow waves, and namaste to our spiritual brother, Ben Myers, back for another episode of After the Bell. And Benjamin, what an episode we got to break down today. How the hell are you, pal?
I'm doing awesome. In a world of what can feel like craziness, it's interviews like this and podcast episodes like this that remind you that we're all not very different from one another, and we're all experiencing similar things through different lenses. So I'm so excited to jump into this with you, my friend.
These guys just keep catching me off guard. For even someone who did this job like them, the similarity yet the differences. And so far, every guy's been very blue collar, but I think we got the most blue collar brother yet. And his upbringing was beautiful. I mean, it's like I was thinking, if I got raised by my grandparents, first generation over from Scotland, but he did it up north, baby.
Well, you heard that from, just not only the journey to get to the league, right, to get to the show, but then the journey to build your own log cabin. That's a different kind of determination, blue collar. And something that popped up with me is expecting it to not be easy. And I think, through his parents being immigrants coming over from, I believe it was Holland, and understanding there was this mentality that was set like, hey, like, whatever you're setting out to do, have the expectation that you're going to work hard for it. It's not going to be easy. And that is just one of those things that, hey, when you expect it to be hard, you show up with this different expectation of, hey, I'm going to do what I have to do to get there. And you can just see it through Krames, man. What an episode. You guys crushed it.
I appreciate it, bro. I was just trying to let him flow with it. And obviously trying to watch my ego come through as he watched and trying to take it a certain way. But he opened up early, and I wanted to really get his background of him. But I I think it's such a blessing, and it resonated with me so much and made me appreciate again how my mom didn't give a shit about how I did. She just wanted me to show up and work hard. And that's what his dad didn't know anything about hockey. He's like, but if we're making that drive, you best believe you're going to be working hard. And I resonated with that with so much. And what a gift that he got from his family that way. And I did, because it allowed us to just explore and do something that was just a passion without any expectation. I think that's where the magic happens. And I think that's what allowed him to be such a player that could put up points and grow the ability to even have the chance to be a tough guy.
What blows me away about the level of like not just labels in the league and whatever it be, your own career or person like who's maybe like working in finance or whatever it is, whoever is like is able to relate to this, it's you get put into this cage that you're expected to look a certain way, act a certain way, perform a certain way, and all these things. And the thing that constantly blows me away with the people you've been talking to is there's so much more skill behind the label of what us as viewers see it as. And like we talk about, he had 49, a high 40 goal season and stuff like that. And most to the casual fans, casual viewers, you see this grinder, this fighter, the guy that has to do what it has to do. To the less educated in the hockey world, it's like, oh, they just made it because they're willing to throw hands. And it's like, no, they obviously have to have a level of skill. So understanding that mentality of by all means and being able to fit and do what it takes is you might not be the Patrick Kanes of the world and all of the things, and you might bring the energy and the grit to it. But understanding that underneath all of this, we have so much skill, so much experience in what we bring to the world that just because what the world labels us, it isn't what is underneath all the time.
Mm. Absolutely. And I think a big thing that resonated in this episode was it may look simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Like there's a big difference between simple and easy. And when he's getting to that level of being like, wait, all I got to do is be a left winger now. I don't have to run around the ice. I can just go from the point to my house right in front of the net, then back out. And this is all I got to, oh, I can do this. I can do this. And he started to feel into that, like, okay, it doesn't have to be complicated. But that don't mean it ain't going to be hard when he's fighting 46 times, 500 penalty minutes. I know, like 500 penalty minutes in 2 seasons in the years we're talking is unheard of. And his path that he took of everybody telling him, just focus on NCAA, focus on this, don't worry about that. And he's like, no, I know what I want to do. And that's the only reason he could make it happen.
You know what stood out? It was once going back to the labels and expectation is like, you're a big bruiser, right? You can throw with the best of them. All of a sudden you get to the show and these first rounders that are skill guys are starting to ring your bell. And he's like, wait, these are supposed to be the ones I'm supposed to walk all over. He goes, there's going to be a different level to this. And once again, it's now shifting expectations. And just because, the recipe is simple doesn't mean that recipe is easy. And what I can only imagine would be fear of going, oh no, these skill guys are knocking me into next week. And I'm supposed to be the one that's like handling this like it's a cakewalk. I think that was something I took away. I was like, you don't think about that. It's like all of a sudden you're starting to question your own identity, your own skill, what is supposed to be your level of expertise, and resetting those entire expectations all over again.
Because he was just used to doing that. He's used to just like being a hardworking kid, like whatever it takes, I just make it work. And I thought it was such a hilarious analogy that he gets, he's in the stands, he's not playing his first little bit, and he gets given the video recorder to record the game, and he has no idea what he's doing. He thinks he's filming like highlight reels, like he's seen on Sportsnet and TSN or ESPN, and he's zooming in on guys. The coach is like, what is this? When he goes to look back at the video, we want to see everything. And he's going, damn. And it's such an analogy of zooming out, start to have awareness of ourselves, awareness of our thoughts, which is the highest form of intelligence, being able to think of your own thoughts. He had such a funny way of looking into that, of like, wow, I can't just be tunnel vision. I got to zoom out and see everything if I'm going to make this thing work.
Isn't it interesting that we want everything to look like a highlight reel? We want to zoom in on it. We've been taught to zoom in on everything. You have to be hyper focused on all the details. And yeah, there's a time and place for that, of course. But the lesson there was zoom out, brother. see the whole ice, see what's going on, recognize what the team's doing, what the environment says, where everyone's located. And when I heard that, I go, that's the analogy for life. Zoom out, brother. There's so much more. This isn't all highlight reels. This isn't all, supposed to be the peak of the mountain. There's so much more going into this. So once in a while, you talked about it. Zooming out is the uncomfortable words of like meditation and mindfulness and all of this shit, right? But it's, why don't we just look at the big picture and just take ourselves out of main focus for a little bit and see what's going on.
And my own journey of getting from minor hockey to that level, it was so about, just doing your job, doing your role. This is my one thing to do. I'm a winger. I'm stapled into that place. I don't have to move. I don't have to think about anybody else's job. But that's what all changed at the OHL level. And for him, junior, is you get there and you realize, oh, on the forecheck, it's not left wing, center, right wing. It's F1, F2, F3, which means I have to know each position in the offensive zone, and then going back in the defensive zone, I need to know who's F1, F2, F3. It's whoever's there first. Just because I'm the winger and I'm back, because it doesn't mean I just go float away to my wing. It's like, oh, that was such a wake-up call for me to be like, I have to know everybody's job. This is getting like, it's not like a lot. It's not like a playbook in the NFL that's this thick. But I need to know what a D-man has to do in this situation. I need to know his role so that I can best support him. It was this awareness of having to zoom out, which was a little alarming at first, but that's how we expand our horizon, our bandwidth to be able to handle things. And like you said, the uncomfortable things, meditation and mindfulness, it's creating that space, as Viktor Frankl says in this Man's Search for Meaning, between stimulus and response, to be able to have that little space of like, oh, ding, ding, ding dong, you have to go do that job, not just stay in your own role, like being able to think about other angles of life.
I love that. I love that analogy. And there's, I was just watching a recent clip. I think it was TJ Oshie and Ovechkin kind of chatting on the ice. And it was just like watching a master of his craft, like break down like the simplicity that he thinks of is, but he knows that what the defense is thinking. He knows if the guy is crashing the net, that the goalie is going to be in a certain position, that the defender is going to be somewhere, and that somebody has to open up the passing lane to get to him. And he goes, well, if that happens, I go here. And if I go here, most likely this side of the net's open. But like, it's that repetition we talk about, that practice. And once again, you didn't have to become an expert in the F1, F2, F3. It's like, I just need to know what everyone's role is. So when I'm in a different position, that I know what they're doing and how it's going to affect me. Well, I think the same thing goes for life. It's knowing what's going on in the roles that not only yourself, but those that play around you are in. And when things happen, when you're zoomed out, you go, I can look at this a little bit more from a tactile or a tactical perspective. Is when this happens, I'm prepared to do this, this, and this. So it's not the emotions getting in the way. It's much more of like, no, I looked at this from the zoom out, the whole ice, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know that that passing lane's closed, or I know that this person's crashing, so I have to rotate. Like, I think when we're able to do that with our life, and you saw Kramer talk about a bit post career, like, he had to shift quite a bit. So I think a lot of that is really relative just to everyday life for people like, I say, me.
Yeah. Like to not just be so wrapped up in our own shit, to be able to come home after a day and, maybe be a little tired from work or whatever you're going through, but then to get in and immediately have this spaciousness, the zoomed out perspective to say, oh, my mom's a little off. Maybe I'm not going to go dump everything on her in my day. Maybe I have a little awareness to see that she might need the space more than I do. Maybe I set mine aside and say, hey, Mom, I notice there's something going on there. And it's amazing how that can shift energy instead of just walking through, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, and just ignoring her. That's how we create connections in life. That's how we can have purpose and meaning and show up for others. So that's what made me think a little bit of like having that awareness, that stimulus response, is that I could show up for people better because I'm aware of what my mom's going through in life. It's not just about me. How can I bring a value to this situation, like my supporting my D-man or my F1, F2, F3? Why can't I bring that to supporting my mom? And sports is just a microcosm of life. It just compacts everything into these uncomfortable situations that help us grow.
I think relating back to the athlete mentality, right? If you're constantly going out there and you're worried just about your stats, how many points, how many PIMs, Was I plus minus? All of this stuff. And it's me, 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 me. You are playing completely different than when it's about a we or an us. And that's why, it's such a skill to be able to zoom out like that, because thinking about the work we do, if this was about me constantly receiving from you, our viewers, and all of these things, I'm going to show up completely different, and it's going to feel selfish. But when the work itself is about how does the things I do impact and create for the greater good? How is this service to others? Because that service comes back to us. So I think about that with sport. It's like, okay, if I'm constantly thinking and I'm in survival mode of if I don't get one goal, one assist, one fight in tonight, and that's all you're thinking about, you're not playing the game anymore. You're really just looking at yourself, and it's not about anything else. So I think that's one of the greatest lessons on the laundry list of lessons that he has lived and helped bring through in his experience. That was a big one for me, is not only was he in tune with his intuition, which he talked about, his gut talking to him about certain things, but I think he really, really became such I'm about the team guy, not just about he gave up a lot of stats to be a team guy. And I thought that was really impressive.
And he took it to a level that was unbelievable. Like, I'm playing this role and I'm worried about my stats. I'm worried about making sure I'm contributing, but he is playing for Manitoba and this coach hasn't even looked at him. He hasn't even looked at him. And it's like, I don't know where I stand with this guy, whatever. I haven't had a meaningful conversation all year, months. And he just goes in and he just opens up. He just completely lays it all out there. And he's like, coach, like, I feel like I have bring no value, all these things. He just dumps it out there. And the coach is like, holy shit, this is incredible. This guy just wants to do anything to help. And he has a whole mindset shift where now he's literally, you could see his face light up. He was enjoying coming to the rink and not playing. When he was playing, he was like, oh, shit, that's kind of easier. I kind of want the heart of like, I want those emotions to come up, but still lean in to help my guys. And the article that I pulled from this interview with him, the coach talked like from the second they met, they hit it off. I would have never imagined the guy didn't even look at him. And it kind of made sense because he was a former guy that didn't play at a high level. He didn't maybe understand the toughness role. And he sees Krames, who's, got his reputation. And he's like, this guy's useless to me. But then he ends up being like his right-hand man in the locker room to transmit the coach's message and just be literally a vessel of love and light. Like I was incredible awareness.
You know what it screamed for me? Purpose and meaning.
Oh yeah.
Krames wasn't finding his purpose and meaning anymore. He was feeling worthless. He was feeling like purposeless. He wasn't providing value anymore. And then what a life lesson to come through and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't get to the level that you guys did, but like going into a locker room, at least in our day, it was really hard to go to a coach and say, I'm feeling a little vulnerable today. And I'm like, right. And he said that. And all of a sudden you saw it in his eyes light up. Like, now I'm giving to the team. Now I'm valuable. Now more so than I ever could be on that ice. And he goes, do you know how cool it is to sit up in the box, watch this, give this feedback, check tape, go through this. And like, you saw it start coming, that passion coming out of him. And I was like, that's what vulnerability can do for people. When you let your ego get out of the way and you're able to be honest and open, it won't always be met with that, but like you can see what is possible is, oh no, I am in service and I am where I am meant to be right now.
Oh my God, dude. So true. If in doubt, just how can I serve someone else and make their day better? And watch how your life explodes.
Yep.
Because I'm telling you, as I get deeper in my own journey, that's the only thing there is to do is serve. And it's always what I come back to because there's nothing else to do, man. I was blown away the way his eyes lit up with that I'm more excited not to be playing. And to be honest, that's where it was kind of like, damn, I thought he was going to get into coaching for sure. But he just goes this complete different direction, which he kind of showed early in his career before he even signed the contract. He's like, do I want to do this? Like he had worked like a dog chasing a bone to get the bone and be like the contract in front of him, be like, do I want to do this? I'll do it and I'll commit. It's like he's able to like zoom in, zoom out so amazingly, but then he decides to walk away at 26, head held high, chest stuck out of like, man, I had purpose and meaning in that career, and now I'm going to take it into my next venture.
Do you know what, in my humble opinion, his greatest gift through that process was he had the awareness to define what success looked like to him throughout the process.
Mm.
And I think in the very beginning, when he was like, my gut was kind of telling me, I don't want to sign this contract. Like that's alarm bells going, because what have you worked for your entire life? And then all of a sudden it goes, I just had to redefine what success looked like. Like I almost like dropped everything. I was like, that's the lesson in everyone's life. Like what success looked like 10 years ago, we cannot be holding ourselves to that same, because we're not the same person. So like, when's the last time you redefined what success looks like in your personal life now, your professional life now, your relationships now? And when he said, like I said, I dropped everything. I was like, yeah, that's it, dude. That's it.
Damn. Like that takes so much internal strength to not care what people think. We're so influenced by the external. He's literally just like, no, this is, I went out on my terms. I'm so proud of it. But then it just shows that even knowing these things, you don't know what's around the next corner. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he got met with something that he wasn't expecting. He thought he had some passion for business and it went in a completely way that he didn't expect. And he had to meet, a challenge that he wasn't expecting so soon.
Man, this thing called happiness, it's this forever moving target. And if you're looking, and he talked about it, if you're looking to the material world, that's so much easier to find happiness, what I'll call a shallow happiness, instead of when he got deep, when we get deep and we find what truly lights us up. And that's what in my opinion, is service and purpose to others. There's just this connection to it. Finding happiness on the inside will forever be more rewarding than the materials of the money, the cars, the flashy stuff, right? I think he said it. He goes, it's so much easier to find material happiness than it is inner happiness. And I go, is this Buddha? Like this guy is so aware and so in tune. And once again, that comes from the hardships, the experience, and going through what he went through. And that's why I was like, this guy is going to resonate so much, because that hit me like a ton of bricks.
And he was so aware to just be like, I thought I had passion for this business, but he quickly delineated that, like, okay, this isn't working. People don't want to sell tires. There's no juice here. There's no passion here. And people are telling me to go have a beer on the weekend and relax. He's like, no, I go all in on anything I do. And he wasn't feeling that reciprocation from the environment. So, you know, what's for us can't miss us. It was a great lesson learned. Time to move on to something else. He's always been an outdoorsman. He gets into doing the pulp, but then it allows him, well, how much is it allowing away? I know for me, balance is so hard. When something feels so good, it can almost become our greatest weapon, can be our greatest enemy. When I love something, I go all in almost to the fault, right? Where it starts to hurt me. He starts having this amazing thing to build that log cabin, but he recognized immediately that he started neglecting other parts of himself.
When we start neglecting other parts of ourselves, those blinders come on, right? And I think that a lot of that's old programming. It's, once again, we've known one way to do this, and you talk about it at length. It's, hey, I'm going to burn the boat across the ocean. I'm going to get here hell or high water. And realizing that burning the boat was just part of your process of realizing that burning the boat wasn't the way you want to do it forever. And there was nothing wrong with that. It was, you learned, right? And I think what he did is, once again, at a faster rate than most, is learning and not judge. Like, there's always going to be judgment along the way, but how quick can we forgive ourselves and understand that this wasn't about being perfect, or wasn't just about getting to the league, because everyone leaves the league at some point. It's when that goes away and that veil's pulled away, what's behind that? And like behind it was, I really like the discipline of showing up and proving myself every day, learning lessons, learning new skills, showing up for others. I love the teamwork. I love the locker room. I love the performance aspect of it. I love the connection with fans. I love the journey of it all. That's not just sports. That's everyday life. It's just, what were you good at? And what did you find joy and purpose in? And how does it relate to your life off the ice? How does it relate to your life out of the office, wherever it is? And I think that's something he had the fortitude to try new things, to find where that juice was. And once again, it's no surprise he found it. Like, those who search often find.
Especially with that blue collar upbringing and mentality. And it just shows though how the journey's a spiral for even him being so vulnerable and such in a way that blew us away with that coach. He now gets out of the game, which was kind of what he was used to. Now he's outside and he's having to relearn and go back to lessons. I can't tell you how many times I had to return to the same lesson that I thought I already figured out, and I had to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And he had to go through that again on the outside. And that's what he came to his conclusions of. Now he has different coping strategies. He has a room in the house he doesn't call the workout room, the gym. He calls it his wellness room. Yeah. He had to realize that, okay, I was vulnerable in a hockey setting. That was one thing. Can I be vulnerable in a setting where there's nobody going to be patting me on the back afterwards for it? You know, nobody's going to be like, oh man, that's awesome. You could, you know, on a pod, like you were so good, such a good guy in the locker room. It's like, no, it's just me and my therapist now. It's just me and my therapist. But he's redefining success and being vulnerable for himself in that setting now, and talking about how important it is for men to just get out and talk, man. It's exciting. He talked about it as.
I loved that. That was such a breath of fresh air. He was just kind of saying what I think so many, not just young, but all levels of, especially male athletes, but we'll just say everyone, not just where the stigma is with mental health in men. He found it as like it was part of, once again, his new arena. Yes. It was, oh no, this is part of my process now. This is part of how I do it. This is part of becoming successful, like inside now. You mentioned something and you said, I thought I've learned these lessons. They've come up and they blah, blah, blah. I want to ask anybody, have you ever read the same book twice?
Oh.
You didn't really read the same book twice. You saw it through a whole new set of lens, a whole new set of circumstances, a whole new set of experiences. And like anytime I read, especially more of like, whether it be personal development, spiritual development, whatever it is, that is not the same book I read the first or second time. Well, don't look at these lessons as coming in and being like, you didn't learn it. You didn't learn it. You didn't learn it. You're not doing good enough. It goes, no, you're just ready to see the pattern and learn it from a new set of perspectives now, a new set of lenses, because your experience has now made you aware of it. Now you can be more intentional with the outcome of it and how you want to show up, what you want to tap into, how you want to redefine what success looks like this time. The pattern never stops. We continue to grow. We continue to evolve. Just because old patterns show up, it doesn't mean that you've regressed in any type of way. Just you have a new set of tools to work through it differently this time. And that's the exciting part.
Great reframe. And this is why, you know, the eyeball can't see itself. How is the only way to see itself? In mirror. Ben's being my mirror right now. He's being mirror to us all, as we all are to each other. And it's so true. The Alchemist, one of the greatest books ever. I've read that book 3 times. Each time I never sat down and paced around my house. So I read it in the same way. I moved the same way, but I was a completely different person digesting what was coming through. The epiphanies, the explosions in my brain of connections and the patterns deepening. And that's what that meant the last time or 2 times ago. What? Because I've now done this. That's why, as you said, those who seek shall find. That's the only thing on this path, is just the earnestness to keep going, no matter what, no matter what. Whatever comes, we face it, we move through it. It's just more, as Ram Dass says, grist for the mill. It's more stuff to chew on and to grow with.
And it's remembering that the process itself is the journey. Like you always hear it, and it's all these cliches, and cliches are cliches for a reason. It's because there's so much truth in them. And something that popped up for me when he was talking about it, he became more aware of like, hey, my sleep's getting a little messed up. Hey, this is like, he started once again taking everything he was learning and turning it inward. Like the old patterns, which I'm sure talking about, like when you're nervous before a fight or before a game that you know you're going to have a big fight and like you can't sleep, like you start to realize that these patterns show up off the ice too. And it's no shock that, you know, our knees hurt or our back hurt or, you know, our mind's racing when we're not taking care of our mind, our body, our soul, our spirit. Like when we're not taking care of those things in a way that we know is best for us, because what we're fueling our body and our mind with, our soul expresses, right? And that's the reality we're experiencing. And once again, through his lens of just being like, hey, it's no shock I kind of felt like this. I wasn't sleeping when I was working 12 hours overnight. I was then burning it, and I was building a log cabin. I wasn't resting. I wasn't doing all of these things. And like you said, he's not just, I'm not just a mirror for you, and you're not just a mirror for me. Like, we're all a mirror of each other. And um, one of the greatest lessons I ever learned was how I view myself, not one other person views me. How you view you, or how I view you, not is will never be the same as the way someone views himself. So remember, like, pay attention to the reflection, because it's for you to interpret. It's
Mm.
not for anyone else to judge you or anything like that. Just for you to interpret, collect the data, and then act with intention to move in a direction of alignment.
Oh, and is he ever doing that? Because as the son I am that went through with my dad, if my dad could be vulnerable and emotional and crying, it wasn't on my path. But I hear Darren Kramer saying, my girls have seen me emotional through this, breaking down, seen mommy help me move me down the hallway because I'm in so much pain. And I'm like, dude, you're just leading with vulnerability. You cannot go wrong like that, man. You just cannot go wrong. I know he's going to figure out those health issues. He's too determined. He's too dialed in. He's too vulnerable with his family. They're going to be there to mirror back everything he needs to learn and know. I mean, I can't wait to have him on again and go deeper. Cause like he said, when we got off, he's like, oh my gosh, Gabe, we could talk for hours. There's so much deeper. And I'm like, hey, brother, we'll get there. We'll get there. We're going to Wayfair and take everybody on a journey as we keep going and diving deeper and deeper.
He Obviously, all of our guests are just, they all shock me, because there's this level of, I can always view from the fans view, right? And you think these guys are just one way, right? It's especially like, it feels a lot like, my journey of growing up. It just feels like there's like this meathead to it, especially when they're a grinder, you're a fighter. There's not this other, like, we don't see that. And what I love about, your work with them, and their ability to open up, is like, there's so much depth behind this. And once again, it's an art form, not just the fighting, but the relationships built, the way to go about it on and off the ice. And I think that's what's really cool, is this veil is just being pulled back. And every one of our guests so far has just shown up in a way that's like, there's so much more than you see on the TV. Like, there's so much more depth, so much more life, so much more journey that's worth sharing, that I think that's what I really love about this, man, is peeling back the onion, peeling back the layer, peeling back the veil, whatever, the curtain, whatever it is, and showing, the mystery that is behind a professional athlete. It's just like everyone else trying to figure it the fuck out, man.
The fights on the ice is what people come for, and they stay for the fights off, because, hey, not all of us have fought somebody on the ice bare knuckles, but you're damn sure the hardest fights, which he said, we've talked about with different guests, I'd rather fight Zdeno Chara, all these guys 1,000 times in a row, than deal with some of the things I have in life. But those are where the real growth happens, not on the ice, in the arena of life, man. So thank you so much again, everybody. After the bell, Ben Myers coming in, just shining love and light as always. Thank you for being a channel of the love and light, brother.
Sending love to everybody.
Namaste. I just seriously hope you enjoyed listening to that podcast as much as I enjoyed recording it with that guest and then breaking it down with Ben on After the Bell. If you really want to support us, the best way is to like and subscribe, to get connected on socials, the Fight Plan on Instagram and TikTok. And then finally, get in the WhatsApp community, where we talk about the real fights in life, but of course the fun hockey fights and fights in sports too. Thank you.